Chapter 1072. Without any nonsense, Yang Ting, who had completed his transformation, suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Yi Chen. Clenching his dragon claws, Yang Ting punched out towards Yi Chen's head. An intense astral wind blasted out in a straight line, incomparably tyrannical. Dang! Sparks flew in all directions as a crimson long sword blocked Yang Ting's fist. The shockwave exploded from the point of contact between the fist and the long sword, spreading out with a loud rumble. Hee hee! Yang Ting grinned. The tail behind him was like a spear, fiercely piercing towards Yi Chen's chest. The tail, which was originally only 2 meters long, was now stretched to more than 3 meters long. Its thickness had also increased from the thickness of a calf to that of an arm, giving off a feeling of incomparable sharpness, as if it could pierce through anything. Not good. Some people exclaimed. Yi Chen's long sword had already been used to block Yang Ting's fist, and he couldn't free his hand to deal with that tail. If he forcefully used his left hand to block, it would only pierce through his palm. After all, in a situation where he didn't have a weapon, even a body refinement king wouldn't be able to block Yang Ting's tail, which was comparable to a divine weapon. But very quickly, everyone realized that they were wrong. They couldn't block this tail, but it didn't mean that Yi Chen couldn't. His left hand flashed and grabbed the arm-thick dragon tail by a hair's breadth. The speed and strength of the dragon tail was extraordinary, and Yi Chen's palm was almost torn. Fortunately, Yi Chen had already used the fourth drive. The fourth drive instantly acted on the dragon tail, eliminating the force on it. This caused the dragon tail to tremble a little before softening. What? Yang Ting's pupils shrank. He didn't expect that Yi Chen would actually be able to catch his tail in such a short time. One had to know that when he punched out, the tail was already ready to attack, and the interval between each punch was less than 1,000th of a blink of an eye. For ordinary people, not to mention catching the tail, they wouldn't even have the time to react. Crack, crack, crack. His bones cracked, and Yi Chen's left arm swelled up slightly. His muscles were filled with explosive power. In the next moment, Yi Chen exerted force in his left arm and fiercely swung to the left. Yang Ting felt that his body was not under his control at all. His entire body was pulled to the left, and his tail was stretched taut. This was not the end. Yi Chen was like swinging a meteor hammer, pulling Yang Ting's tail. In an instant, he swung Yang Ting's tail dozens of times, and his speed was getting faster and faster. In the end, it was like a phantom, and it was impossible to tell how many times he had swung it. Hoo! With a strong gust of wind, Yi Chen dove down. When he was less than 100 meters away from the stage, Yi Chen let go of the demon-slaughtering sword in his right hand and changed to grab Yang Ting's tail with both hands, fiercely smashing it down. Boom! The entire stage shook and a circular shockwave spread out. Outside the stage, outside the Golden Gate, everyone was dumbfounded. They could not close their eyes for a long time. The tyrannical dragon Yang Ting had actually been ruthlessly smashed into the stage like a meteor hammer. No matter how one looked at it, this was somewhat absurd. Correspondingly, it also brought them an intense shock. Their bodies felt like they had been electrocuted, and all their hair stood on end. This is too crazy. Only the tyrannical dragon Yang Ting has ever treated others like this. I never thought that someone would treat him like this. While the crowd was discussing, Lu Wenxiu, Yang Feihua, Li Yifeng, Xiao Shiyu, Zhao Wuke, and the rest looked at each other in dismay. They all knew that Yi Chen's eyesight was very powerful, but they did not expect it to be to this extent. In the eyes of others, Yang Ting's instantaneous attack with his tail was a killing move, but in the eyes of Yi Chen, it was a flaw. It was as if in front of him, not a single flaw could be exposed, or they would face a heavy blow from the opponent. His body floating in the air, Yi Chen raised his right hand high and suddenly waved it downwards. The demon-slaughtering sword that Yi Chen had given up previously, clanged and suddenly transformed into 81 sword shadows. The 81 sword shadows then condensed together, turning into a long sword with a restrained light. With a swoosh, it shot towards Yang Ting, who was lying on the stage. This series of actions was completed in an instant. Yang Ting's body straightened up, and the long sword pierced through his head. However, it only penetrated half an inch, and the long sword could no longer penetrate any further. Ang! A resounding dragon roar resounded, and the long sword was sent flying, landing in Yi Chen's hand. A steel-green aura gushed out, and Yang Ting slowly stood up. The wound on his head had already healed. I have not been treated like this for a long time. You are very lucky, but also very unfortunate, because you have angered me. Yang Ting's eyes gradually turned cold. This is a battle, there is only victory and defeat. Yi Chen sighed inwardly at his opponent's defense. That previous attack wasn't very powerful, but the 9 return to one sword technique was one of Yi Chen's killing moves. It was proficient in breaking through a single point, and its penetrative power was astonishing. Even if a group of elite geniuses stood in a row, it would still be able to penetrate through. However, facing Yang Ting, it could only slightly pierce through his skull. One could imagine how terrifying and exaggerated his opponent's defense was. This is indeed a battle, so what I say goes. A terrifying dragon aura erupted, and the void within a radius of 10,000 li instantly froze. Within this range, no matter what object it was, it would suffer an unimaginable pressure. Even light would slow down to the speed of light, and it would become slower and slower. This was the dragon aura belonging to a giant dragon, and it contained the will of a dragon. Boom 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 boom. At the same time as Yang Ting's dragon aura erupted, Yi Chen also raised his sword domain with all his strength. Sword domain was a sword artist's domain, and Yi Chen's sword domain had already reached the late 4th layer, only a step away from the peak. The intense dragon aura and sword domain clashed, immediately producing a popping sound. The two cancelled each other out, weakening each other. Yang Ting's dragon aura was cancelled out. It's the late 4th layer sword domain. Someone couldn't help but say. Domain was a martial artist's achievement. The stronger the domain, the higher the aptitude. For ordinary people, even if they spent 10 or 100 times more time, they still wouldn't be able to obtain a powerful domain. Life and Death Realm was divided into 9 layers, and so was domain. However, domain was even more difficult to raise than Life and Death Realm. In the universe, even some unparalleled 9th layer Life and Death Realm super experts couldn't raise their domain to the 9th layer. Most of them were stuck at the 7th layer, and those who could reach the 8th layer were few in number, not to mention the 9th layer. Yi Chen was only at the peak of 3rd layer Life and Death Realm, but he already possessed the late 4th layer sword domain. Among the 20 people present, there were many who had reached the 4th layer. Among these 14, 7 were at the early 4th layer, 5 were at the mid 4th layer, and 2 were at the late 4th layer. Adding Yi Chen, there were only 3. A wisp of a strange expression flashed on Yang Ting's face when he saw that Yi Chen possessed a late-stage 4th level sword domain. In the next moment, he didn't hesitate to blast a fist at Yi Chen, and the iron-black dragon-shaped energy within it was ghastly and murderous. 4th step Saint Dragon Fist. However, this lifelike iron-black dragon-shaped chi didn't even get close to Yi Chen before it was chopped into several pieces by a dark green sword screen, burning with dark green flames. Chapter 1073. Since the completion of the merciless water and fire, Yi Chen had never used its full power in a battle. Against Lu Wenxiu, he had only used 30% of its power, 40 to 50% against Xiao Shiyu, 60% against Zhu Jian, and 80% against Xie Xiaoshan. Right now, Yi Chen had increased the merciless water and fire's power to 90%. The dark green sword screen was simply invincible, nothing could stop it. One sword attack had cut through the black dragon-shaped chi. Yi Chen waved his arm, 2 dark green sword screens formed a cross shape and attacked towards Yang Ting. In the middle of the cross, a dark green light ball was born. The jade-green sword screen connected the heavens and the earth. Yang Ting had no time to dodge. He crossed his arms, and the muscles that were covered with dragon armor wriggled crazily, forming a dragon armor shield with a diameter of 0.5 meter. The moment the dragon armor shield appeared, the jade-green cross-shaped sword screen slashed towards it, as fast as lightning. Swoosh! The merciless water and fire's power was unparalleled. Yang Ting was smashed into the ground from midair. Both of his feet rubbed against the ground as he slid down. Because of the huge force, the hard surface of the platform had been rubbed, leaving behind 2-inch deep marks. All of a sudden, rocks were flying everywhere, and dust was rising everywhere. The intense friction had caused both of his feet to burn with a red flame, and there was even lightning flashing around. After sliding for thousands of miles, Yang Ting could feel that the merciless water and fire's power had been reduced by more than half. It was no longer as unstoppable as before. When he was about to shatter the cross-shaped sword screen, a horrifying scene happened. The dragon armor-covered shield had a huge hole in the middle, and a dark green light ball had shot towards his chest. Not good. Yang Ting was shocked, and his whole body felt cold. Boom. The dark green light ball looked small, but the power it had exploded with was earth-shattering. Not only had it pierced through Yang Ting's chest, but it had also caused an explosion. In the next second, a constantly expanding dark green sphere covered Yang Ting. Inside the sphere, the sword chi resonated with each other, shuttling back and forth. Each sword chi was no weaker than a normal attack from Yi Chen. Under the attack of thousands of sword chi, Yang Ting's body was covered in blood, and the dragon armor was flying everywhere. How can there be such a terrifying killer move? Everyone stared blankly at this scene. In their line of sight, Yang Ting was enveloped by the jade-green sphere of light and carried into the sky. His entire body was suspended in the sphere of light, receiving the punishment of 1,000 cuts and death by 1,000 cuts. Puff. One of Yang Ting's arms was cut countless times by the sword chi before it was severed from the shoulder. Although it still contained the armored dragon force and dragon will, it was no longer under Yang Ting's control. Soon, the severed arm exploded from the outside to the inside, turning into dust. Still not giving up, Yi Chen frowned and stared at Yang Ting's abdomen. Yang Ting's abdomen swelled up slightly, and soon after, the swollen part rose to his chest. In the next moment, Yang Ting opened his mouth, and an iron-black light wave gushed out. Originally, the jade-green sphere of light was in a state of absolute balance. As long as the sword chi was not exhausted, it would never disappear. However, the appearance of the iron-black light wave broke this balance. The jade-green light wave twisted a few times before being penetrated by the light wave. The sword chi lost its connection and began to randomly cut through it. The range of the attack expanded to several tens of thousands of li, and correspondingly, its might was reduced by hundreds of thousands of times. I, Yang Ting, will not lose. An angry roar resounded, accompanied by a wave of iron-black light wave. This was the innate ability of a dragon, dragon breath. Dragon breath was actually the essence of dragon power, which was an even purer form of dragon power. Yang Ting was at the fourth layer of life and death realm, and his dragon breath was equivalent to the dragon power of a fifth layer. Once it was shot out, its destructive power would be astonishing, not inferior to Yang Ting's full power attack. At first, the dragon breath was only as thick as an arm, but it continued to expand. By the time it reached several thousand li away, it was already more than 100 meters thick. Dozens of dragon breaths shot out, flooding the eastern side of the arena, submerging Yi Chen. Creak. With a flicker of his right hand, Yi Chen caught a strand of sword chi. This strand of sword chi was hidden within the dragon breath, and was extremely sharp. However, as soon as it entered Yi Chen's hand, it immediately became gentle. This was because this was Yi Chen's sword chi. The current Yang Ting seemed incomparably brave and fierce, but in fact, he had already reached the end of his road. His body was filled with sword chi from the explosion of merciless water and fire, to the extent that even the dragon breath he shot out contained sword chi. Moreover, due to the impure nature of the dragon breath, its might was not at its peak, and its power was weakening very quickly. Of course, this was also Yang Ting's intelligence. He had borrowed the innate ability dragon breath to vent out the sword chi he couldn't clear out. Otherwise, if he used normal methods to clear it out, the time it would take would be hundreds of times longer. Unfortunately, the opponent had underestimated the destruction sword intent. Although the sword chi could be vented out through dragon breath, the destruction sword intent would still remain within the opponent's body. The destruction sword intent's power lay in its ability to transform other energies into destruction sword chi, such as Yang Ting's dragon power, blood chi, and even flesh. If it didn't eliminate the destruction sword intent, the effect would be minimal. Obviously, Yang Ting had also discovered this point. He no longer spat out his dragon breath, but instead instigated the giant dragon's will to sweep through his entire body, not letting go of any corner. It's too late. Yi Chen shook his head. He raised the demon-slaughtering sword high up and slashed down. A dark green sword screen flashed past. Yang Ting, who had used most of the giant dragon's will to eliminate the destruction sword intent, could no longer resist Yi Chen's merciless water and fire, and was cut into two halves by the sword. Yi Chen won. I really didn't expect that even tyrannical dragon Yang Ting would be defeated. That's right, there isn't a single wound on Yi Chen's body. This is a complete victory. If Yi Chen's previous achievements had shocked everyone, now everyone was already numb to it. Even someone as strong as Yang Ting didn't seem to pose any threat to his opponent, and was at a disadvantage from the beginning to the end. At the last moment, everyone thought that Yang Ting had a chance to make a comeback, but who would have thought that it was a scene of a cornered beast fighting? Now it's up to Lung Feifen and Arju. The battles would not be delayed because of the crowd's emotions. After the 9th and 10th battles ended, the 17th round began. Soon, Lung Feifen was matched against tyrannical dragon Yang Ting. Just like Yi Chen, as long as Lung Feifen defeated Yang Ting, he would undoubtedly be ranked in the top 3, provided that he had the strength to do so. Rank 4 Sacred Dragon Fist. Lifeless Azura / The battle between Yang Ting and Lung Feifen was extremely intense. The dragon-shaped qi and the saber qi intertwined, creating a dazzling scene. Lung Feifen, it's impossible for you to defeat me with your lifeless Azura / A huge saber mark pierced through the sky of the stage, sending Yang Ting flying. The dragon shield on his left arm was sliced in half, but in the next second, the dragon shield instantly recovered. True Azura / Lung Feifen's expression remained unchanged. An Azura silhouette appeared behind him. The silhouette was 100 jong tall, and the long saber was also 100 jong long. With a single slash, the entire stage was dyed red. Yang Ting's entire body turned into a puddle of blood, his vitality completely extinguished. As I thought. Yi Chen stared at Lung Feifen. Just like him, Lung Feifen had been holding back his strength from the beginning. When he first met Lung Feifen, Yi Chen already had a feeling that he wouldn't be able to win even if he went all out. After such a long time, he had no idea how much Lung Feifen had improved. Fortunately, he had improved as well. Chapter 1074. So scary. This Lung Feifen still has the true Shura / Earlier, he killed Xia Xiaoshan with one slash, and now he killed Yang Ting with one slash. Yang Ting is ranked second on the Sky King list, but this time, he is not even in the top 3. True Shura / This must be the evolved version of Shura / Could it be that there is still the true lifeless Shura / Everyone discussed spiritedly, making guesses in their hearts. Lung Feifen, who had defeated Yang Ting with the true Shura / landed on the stage with ease. Clank. His blade returned to its scabbard. Yang Ting turned around and looked at Yi Chen and Arju. This is so interesting. He has actually reached the 3rd level of the Selfless Realm. This is a realm that even I have not reached. The Peerless King's eyes flashed with excitement as he rubbed his chin. Battle after battle began, and battle after battle ended. When it came to the 9th battle of the 17th round, the crowd was in an uproar. The 9th battle was between Arju and Yi Chen. Without Lung Feifen, this battle would definitely be the most intense one, and the one that would decide the winner. Nobody had expected the two to meet so soon. The Peerless King Arju is proficient in fist arts, palm arts, finger arts, and leg arts. It is said that he is also studying spear arts. In terms of the variety of arts he has learned, no one can beat him. However, up until now, he has only used the palm art, the Galaxy Godly Palm, and the finger art, the Extreme Wind and Water art. Even Xia Xiaoshan could not force him to use his 3rd art. Yi Chen is amazing as well. One man and one sword, he made it to the top 3. Even Lung Feifen was not as amazing as him. The Peerless Arju and the Supreme Sword Art Yi Chen, the two were about to battle, which made everyone's heart beat faster. They could not imagine what would happen next, and who would gain the upper hand. But one thing was for sure, this would be a battle that they would regret for the rest of their lives if they missed it. On the battling platform, Aju and Yi Chen stood facing each other. Although the two didn't deliberately release their auras, everyone didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but in their eyes, the figures of Yi Chen and Aju were getting bigger and bigger, filling up their line of sight. It was as if the two of them were the only people left in the world, and everything else had disappeared. What a powerful mental pressure. Yang Feihua sucked in a breath of cold air. The two's essence, qi, and spirit were so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. Before they even made a move, the spectators were already affected. As illusionists, Li Yifeng and Ji Chengyu had serious expressions on their faces. Naturally, they would not be a match for Aju and Yi Chen. However, they did not expect that their spiritual cultivation had reached such a level. Just their spiritual cultivation alone was enough to create subtle hallucinations. This was a testament to their strength. The moment has finally come. Let's begin. Aju had been looking forward to fighting with Yi Chen for a long time. When he first saw Yi Chen, he knew that the other party would not be a simple person. He would most likely be the one to walk to the end. Yes, let's begin. Yi Chen also longed for a battle with Aju. The meaning of life was to challenge. If there was no opponent, it would be very sad and life would lose its meaning. Pop, pop. Both of them released their domains at almost the same time. Aju's domain was dazzling and colorful, like a dreamy starry sky. Yi Chen's sword domain was full of sharpness and fierceness. When the two clashed, the void resounded with the sound of countless bubbles bursting. Galaxy Godly Palm. As soon as the domain was released, Aju immediately launched an attack. The blue galaxy-like palm energy roared and rushed towards Yi Chen, like a waterfall flowing across the galaxy. Rip! The sound of cloth tearing rang out. Yi Chen held the Demon Slayer sword with both hands and slashed the blue galaxy. Aju purely wanted to test Yi Chen's bottom line. He repeatedly performed the Galaxy Godly Palm. With him as the center, countless blue galaxies rushed towards Yi Chen, wave after wave, endlessly. Yi Chen's movement technique was elegant and swift. Every time he moved, he would definitely split open a blue galaxy. Gradually, Yi Chen was less than 10 miles away from Aju. Absolute feng shui. Seeing that the Galaxy Godly Palm could not do anything to Yi Chen, Aju's expression did not change. He raised his right hand's index and middle fingers and jabbed towards Yi Chen. A sense of danger flashed through Yi Chen's mind as he shifted dozens of meters to the side, avoiding that finger attack. He looked sideways and saw a bright white light that was sharper than any blade. The white light landed on the surface of the platform. Swoosh! 100-meter-long crack appeared on the surface of the platform. Such a strong killing power. The second martial art is already so powerful, then what about the third and fourth? Everyone was shocked. The contest stage was not an ordinary object. It was already amazing to leave a mark on it, but Aju was actually able to cut a 100-meter-long crack on it. Xie Xiaoshan raised his eyebrows. He was defeated by this absolute feng shui. Although it was a finger technique, it was sharper than any martial art. Even his killing intent oscillation fist could be cut open. Poochie poochie poochie. His figure flickered. Both of Aju's hands were like butterflies flying through flowers. One after another, sharp white aura cut towards Yi Chen. The power is not bad. Yi Chen's figure flickered as well. A dark green sword curtain appeared. He slashed horizontally and vertically. The entire center of the contest stage was under Yi Chen's attack range. Although that sharp white aura was extremely sharp and could cut through anything, compared to the dark green sword curtain, it was still a bit weaker. Of course, Yi Chen had also increased the merciless water and fire's power to 90%. Ding, ding, dang. The two fought from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the edge of the contest stage. The battle was extremely intense. The absolute feng shui cannot do anything to Yi Chen. Now, Aju should be using his third martial art, right? Someone said with anticipation. Of course, but I wonder if the third martial art is a fist art or a leg art. It should be a fist art. It is said that some people have seen Aju use a fist art, but no one has ever seen Aju use a leg art. It has appeared. It is indeed a fist art. Cries of surprise resounded. On the contest stage, a scarlet halo appeared behind Aju. As the halo appeared, his aura soared. He punched out, shaking the entire contest stage. The scarlet flame light exploded like a star exploding or a supernova. Red giant star fist. Using a fist art to create a star explosion? A strange light flickered in Yi Chen's eyes. Although the majority of powerful life and death kings could shatter stars, it did not mean that they could ignore the might of a star explosion. For example, when a bomb did not explode, one could shatter it with a stomp. But once the bomb exploded, one would be killed in an instant. Now it is time to test your bottom line, Aju said inwardly. Seeing the flame light getting closer and closer, Yi Chen's face did not have the slightest trace of panic or impatience. Holding the demon slaughtering sword tightly, Yi Chen raised it over his head and let out a low roar before slashing out. Merciless water and fire's full power was unleashed. Bang! This time, it was not a dark green sword screen, but a dark green light sphere. The dark green light sphere shot out, annihilating everything in its path, including that powerful flame light. Not good. Aju was startled. It was the same sword art, but this one was several times more powerful than the previous one. His red giant fist couldn't stop it in the slightest. Subduing Dragon Divine Kick. Without any hesitation, Aju used a leg art, which was also his most powerful martial art, Subduing Dragon Divine Kick. Subduing Dragon Divine Kick, as the name implied, this leg art's might could even subdue giant dragons. Giant dragons were not limited to iron-armored giant dragons. In fact, iron-armored giant dragons were only at the bottom of the giant dragons. They were ordinary giant dragons, and above them were crystal giant dragons, golden giant dragons, and dark giant dragons. The shadow of the leg, which was filled with a metallic luster, was as long as a street. The leg kicked the dark green ball of light. Rumble. A powerful explosion spread out, and the steel leg shadow shattered inch by inch. Countless sword chi slashed over. The dark green light sphere looked like a light sphere from the outside, but in fact, it was a light sphere formed by countless sword chi. Once the light sphere was destroyed, one would have to face the light sphere's decomposition and the countless sword chi's attack. Aju didn't have time to use any martial arts to block the sword chi. He could only cross his arms and curl up his body, trying to reduce the area of attack on his body. Kai, Kai, Kai. One after another, the sword chi slashed on Aju's protective Jin Yuan. Gradually, the protective Jin Yuan became thinner and more unstable. With a pop, the protective Jin Yuan was broken. In the next moment, countless sparks appeared on Aju's body, which was caused by the friction between the sword chi and his body. What kind of sword art is this? It broke through Aju's red giant fist and subduing Dragon Divine Kick in a row. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I can't even imagine how powerful this sword attack is. It seems like Aju won't be able to hold on for much longer. In everybody's eyes, Aju was already at the end of his rope. Numerous sword scars appeared on his body. These sword scars were wriggling as if they were alive. Of course, everybody was also amazed at Aju's powerful defense, which seemed to be even higher than Yang Ting's. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been torn apart by the sword chi long ago. Late rank 6 spirit body. Yi Chen immediately guessed that Aju's spirit body had already reached late rank 6. A rank 6 spirit body had a powerful ability to absorb damage. For example, Shu Qing's spirit body had reached rank 6. However, Shu Qing was only at early rank 6, and his cultivation base had not reached the first layer of life and death realm. He was far from being comparable to Aju. Raising the demon slaughtering sword once again, Yi Chen slashed at Aju. Swish. The dark green light sphere was as fast as a flickering light. The closer it got to the opponent, the larger its diameter became. Trying to dodge it with one's own speed was almost impossible. First of all, the light sphere's speed was close to light speed. Adding on the fact that the range of the light sphere was extremely large, one would have to surpass light speed to avoid it. Otherwise, one would inevitably be affected by the aftershock. Just as a Jew was about to be defeated by this sword strike, 3 Aegius suddenly appeared in front of him. The 3 Aegius stood in a row, from left to right, and separately displayed the Galaxy Divine Palm, Extreme Feng Shui, and Red Giant Star Fist. The three great martial arts joined together and shattered the dark green light ball. Full battle power. Yi Chen shockingly discovered that these 3 Aegius possessed the same battle power as the main body. There was no difference at all. The combined attack of 3 Aegius could indeed shatter his merciless water and fire. Chapter 1075. Very powerful. You actually forced out my martial phantom. A powerful chi energy erupted, and the wriggling sword scars on Arju's body flew out like swimming fish, revolving around Arju. In the next moment, they disappeared without a trace. Taking a step forward, Arju's figure flickered and appeared on the right side of the 3 Aegius, standing in the 4th position. The 4 Aegius had the same aura and battle strength. 8 gazes locked onto Yi Chen. Not a will projection or a consciousness projection. What are they? Yi Chen creased his brows. These 3 Aegius that suddenly appeared couldn't be a will projection or a consciousness projection. The will projection only had 10% of the battle power of the main body, while the consciousness projection only had 30%. However, these 3 Aegius had the same battle power as the main body, giving off an intense feeling of danger. What? 4 Aegius. 4 times the battle strength. 1 is already so powerful, what would 4 be like? Is this Arju's true battle strength? Simply unimaginable. The spectators were stupefied, their faces full of disbelief. It wasn't that they hadn't seen powerful killer moves before. A 7th layer life and death titled Monarch's killer move was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than theirs. However, they had never seen a killer move that could produce 3 doppelgangers with the same battle strength as the main body. Yi Chen, if you don't have a stronger ability, then this is the end. The 4 Aegius simultaneously spoke and launched their moves. Star River Palm, Absolute Wind and Water, Red Giant Fist, and Tyrannical Subduing Dragon Divine Kick, 4 killer moves bombarded Yi Chen side by side. Previously, the 3 killer moves combined could already break through merciless water and fire. Now, the combined might of the 4 killer moves was at least several times stronger than merciless water and fire, and this was only because of the internal friction. As you wish. Yi Chen's fluttering black hair and clothes suddenly stopped. The chaotic chi energy in the surroundings seemed to have been cut off and stopped in the void. Within Yi Chen's sword domain, everything was in a state of stillness. The only thing that didn't stop was Yi Chen's thoughts and himself. Instant sword domain. The sword domain derived from the momentary brilliance had the effect of freezing space. Arju's 4 killer moves instantly entered Yi Chen's sword domain. In the next moment, the 4 killer moves slowed down but did not stop. The distance is too far. Yi Chen gave up on using momentary brilliance and chose to use merciless water and fire to break the 4 killer moves that had their speed greatly reduced. What is this? The ability to stop space? A strange look flashed in Arju's eyes. That's right, it was this ability that broke my 9-star alignment. Lu Wenxiu suddenly understood. His strength was far inferior to Zhu and Yi Chen. Therefore, at that time, Yi Chen had only slightly used this ability. Since the process had only lasted for a split second, it was so fast that he didn't even have time to react before disappearing. Thus, he couldn't figure out what went wrong. The ability to stop space? Interesting, but it does not seem to be able to stop my killer move. A Jew regained his composure and said. Indeed. Yi Chen did not deny it. Instant sword domain was ultimately derived from the momentary brilliance, and the ability to stop space was less than 30% of the momentary brilliance's strength. It was more than enough to deal with others, but it was far from enough to deal with an expert like a Jew. It could not completely stop the opponent's killer move. Swoosh 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 swoosh. Phantoms flashed, and the 4 Aegius pulled apart from each other and attacked Yi Chen from 4 different angles. Majestic palm energy, sharp white light, explosive fist energy, and extremely destructive leg shadows. Even if the 4 killer moves were separated, they still had great power, and defense alone could not block them. The jade-green sword screen stretched horizontally, and Yi Chen broke the blue palm energy, sharp finger energy, and explosive fist energy, but that was all. Yi Chen could not block the most destructive leg shadow in time, and his left arm was kicked. The sound of bones breaking resounded, and Yi Chen's left arm was broken. Only the bones of the left arm were broken. Aju's eyes narrowed. He knew how powerful the dragon-subduing divine kick was. This was a leg art that could subdue a giant dragon of the same realm, but when it kicked Yi Chen, it actually only broke the bones of his left arm. How strong was his defense? Even he and Yang Ting seemed to be much weaker than him in terms of defense. Yi Chen shook his head. He naturally knew that his defense was unbelievably strong, and this was mainly because his immortal sword intent had already reached the 7th step, which was equivalent to an ordinary 8th-step sword intent, and an ordinary 8th-step sword intent could automatically form a protective sword intent. Compared to a 6th-step spirit body, the protective sword intent was even stronger. Although it was not as strong as a 7th-step spirit body, it was definitely equivalent to a peak 6th-step spirit body. In addition, the sword domain also slowed down the attacking speed of the dragon-subduing divine kick, causing the power of this kick to decrease a lot. Being able to break the bones of his left arm with one kick was enough to prove the power of the dragon-subduing divine kick. Be careful. The broken bones of the left arm were just a small injury, and the martial will contained in it was not difficult to remove. After a breath, Yi Chen had already recovered. Raising the demon-slaughtering sword high up, Yi Chen slashed towards Aju's body. Whoosh! The dark green light ball was like a light wave as it slashed out horizontally. Not good. Aju immediately knew what Yi Chen was thinking. The opponent clearly knew the characteristics of the martial arts phantom. The other 3 Aju could only use the galaxy palm, extreme wind, and water fist, and only the main body could use the most powerful dragon-subduing divine kick. Therefore, the opponent chose to ignore the other 3 killing moves and attack his main body. Although he knew what Yi Chen was thinking, Aju did not have a better way to deal with it. Facing Yi Chen's full power attack, Aju chose to meet it head-on. The result was obvious. The dragon-subduing divine kick was not a match for the merciless water and fire. The leg shadow was destroyed, and Aju was killed by countless sword chi, each of which contained a destructive sword intent that was extremely difficult to get rid of. Of course, Yi Chen also suffered from Aju's counterattack. The other 3 Aju's killing moves bombarded Yi Chen's body. The galaxy palm shattered Yi Chen's protective Zhen Yuan, the extreme wind and water fist cut open a wound on Yi Chen's body, and the red star fist scorched Yi Chen's chest black, emitting bursts of smoke. However, with the isolation of the protective sword intent, these injuries could not be any lighter. They only looked a bit battered, which was undoubtedly 10 times better than Aju. What kind of battle is this? One has 4 times the battle power, and the other has a defense even stronger than Yang Ting's. That sword move is even more powerful than all of Aju's killing moves. They're too strong. Only today did I understand the meaning of there's always someone better than you out there. In terms of attack, no one can compare to them. In terms of defense, no one can compare to them. They're simply 2 monsters among monsters. Everyone was already stunned. Aju's martial arts phantom let them know what battle power was, and Yi Chen's sword move and defense told them what the strongest attack and defense were. Chapter 1076. Ignoring the small injuries on his body, Yi Chen continued to attack Ju with merciless water and fire. The dark green light sphere was like a peerless sword artist. Once it struck the opponent, it would erupt with millions of sword chi. Ju had just expelled the destruction sword intent, and before he could recover, he was struck by the dark green light sphere and suffered countless sword chi cuts. If this goes on, I'll lose sooner or later. Although Ju was confident in his defense, and his late 6th-step spirit body could absorb a portion of the damage, the sword chi was too powerful. The destruction sword intent contained within was like maggots in one's bones, becoming more and more difficult to remove. If this continued, the destruction sword intent would accumulate more and more, and only defeat awaited him. Seems like I can only enter Berserk realm. Making up his mind, Ju's aura erupted. What? His battle strength can still increase. Look, Ju's aura is changing. What a frightening aura. On the battling platform, the aura on Ju's body instantly turned frightening. The originally pure Jin Yuan aura had now turned into a dark red ruthless aura. This aura was so frightening that it could cause people to hallucinate. It was as if countless demons were emerging from this aura, wanting to devour people. Not to mention contending against Ju, ordinary life and death kings wouldn't even be able to approach him. This frightening aura could make them fall into a nightmare. Along with the aura change, Ju's eyes turned blood red, shooting out a blood beam several thousand meters long. It's even more berserk than my killing intent fist technique. Xie Xiaoshan creased his brows. Selfless berserk realm. Among the crowd, only Lu Wenxiu knew what was happening to Ju. Selfless berserk realm was divided into 3 stages. The first stage was the ordinary stage, and the second stage had 2 paths, selfless heavenly eye and selfless body. Selfless berserk realm was not the third stage of selfless realm, but a mutation of the second stage. In order to enter this realm, one had to suffer an extremely powerful stimulation and fall into the selfless berserk realm. Yi Chen had once entered this realm, and now, he had 30 to 40% chance of doing so. However, Ju had clearly reached the stage where he could use berserk realm. Ju's eruption had undoubtedly caused the spectators to pant. They had not expected that Ju would still have a trump card up his sleeve. The battle had progressed to this point, and it had already exceeded their imagination. They were completely unable to predict how the battle would develop. The strength of these 2 people far exceeded their level. Ha! Ju roared, and the destructive sword intent attached to his body dissipated into nothingness. In the next moment, Ju's figure flickered, and the 3 martial arts phantoms merged into his body, and then they transformed again. Yi Chen, take this. With bloodshot eyes, the 4 Argias attacked Yi Chen together. The energy has increased by several times. Yi Chen clearly sensed that the space-stopping power of the sword realm could no longer restrain the opponent's ace attack. Although the space-stopping power was powerful, it had its limits. Back when he had rushed through the dead end of Elysium, that 6th-level life and death realm demon king had easily broken through his space-stopping power. The reason was that the opponent's energy had already surpassed his space-stopping power. And now, Ju's energy was also approaching this level. The combined ace attack was about to hit Yi Chen. Once hit, even if he had the immortal sword intent to protect his body, he would still be blasted into pieces. However, the opponent had a trump card, and so did Yi Chen. Instead of retreating, Yi Chen rushed forward. Is Yi Chen crazy? Everyone could not understand. Lung Feifen's eyes turned serious, and he was slightly confused. The Crimson Demon Slayer sword drew a mysterious trajectory in the void. As the trajectory was perfected, the void came to a stop inch by inch. At first, there was still chi energy flowing in all directions, but when the trajectory was completed, all the chi energy within 3,000 feet floated up, like dazzling auroras, like ribbons of light hanging in the air. Correspondingly, Ju's 4 ace attacks also gradually stopped. Although they were not completely still, there was no difference. They looked like crawling tortoises. Meanwhile, the tip of the demon slaughtering sword in Yi Chen's hand released an extremely dazzling radiance. This radiance was so resplendent that everyone was attracted by it, and their souls seemed to be sucked into it. Without a sound, the 4 ace attacks were destroyed. A crimson sword light cut through the void and slashed at Ju's chest. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere as Ju was sent flying while spurting out blood. Space profound sword move. Ju was inwardly shocked, but he soon realized that Yi Chen's sword realm contained the space-stopping power. This power clearly came from the space profound, and the space-stopping power of this move was several times stronger than the sword realm. The distance is too far. Yi Chen shook his head. The range of the moment of glory was only 3,000 zhong, which was close to 20 li, and the distance between him and Ju was more than 20 li, so he was unable to affect the other party. In addition, the moment of glory had used up a lot of energy to defeat the 4 ace attacks, so only about 30% of the sword energy was left. If it was at a close distance, this sword could completely kill the other party. Whiz. As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Chen quickly flashed out. With the help of the sword realm, his speed had reached his limit, and he was like a ray of sword light. I can't get too close to him. Arju borrowed the sword energy that had struck his body and frantically retreated. For a while, Yi Chen was actually unable to close the distance between them. Suddenly, Yi Chen shook his hand and threw out the demon-slaughtering sword. With a flash of thought, the demon-slaughtering sword transformed into 81 sword images, which then condensed into one and shot towards Arju. 9 returned to 1 sword art. With a clang, while retreating, Arju could only use 70 to 80% of his movement technique. The sword pierced through his protective true essence, and his body staggered, stopping for a moment. Clang. At this moment, a clear sword cry rang out. Arju only felt his vision blur, and then he lost consciousness. As expected of a heavenly king-grade sword, Yi Chen sized up the dragon spring sword in his hand. This was the first time he had used it against an enemy since it was completed. Needless to say, its power was several times stronger than the demon-slaughtering sword. More importantly, using this sword to perform sword arts was extremely smooth, and he almost couldn't feel the existence of any resistance. Not to mention Arju, even Yi Chen himself was very surprised. Can sword arts be this fast? The moment of glory could make space freeze, but for the spectators, they couldn't feel the power of space freezing. They only felt the scene suddenly stop, and the next moment, Arju was cut into pieces by the incomparably brilliant sword chi. Even the undying body couldn't reform his body, and when he reappeared, he was outside the battling platform. Arju lost. Yi Chen won. This was Yi Chen's 17th consecutive victory. Chapter 1077. I didn't expect King Peerless Arju to be unable to stop him. In my opinion, no one will be able to stop him in this divine trials, Yang Feihua said slowly as she sized up the somewhat despondent Arju. The Speed Wolf King next to him said, "Isn't there Lung Feifen?" Lung Feifen's true Azura slash had defeated Yang Ting with a single slash. Yang Feihua shook his head and said, "It's very difficult. Lung Feifen is known as the lifeless swordsman and his saber art is well-tempered, but he may not be able to defeat Arju, let alone Yi Chen. Moreover, Yi Chen's defense is the best among everyone here. Just this point alone is enough to make people despair. It's very unlikely that Lung Feifen can defeat him. As a swordsman, Yi Chen not only had a strong attack, but his defense was also unparalleled. It could be said to be a miracle. Not only Yang Feihua, but most people also thought that Yi Chen was invincible. The 17th round ended, and the 18th round began. In this round, Yi Chen's opponent was Soul Breaker Spear Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao immediately admitted defeat. Soon, Lung Feifen faced Arju. Arju had already recovered from the shadow of his defeat. He was not a person who took it to heart, but he did not believe that he had lost to Yi Chen. After going on stage, he became the unparalleled Arju again. Dragon subduing divine kick. True Shura slash. In the blink of an eye, the battle between the two of them had entered into a white-hot stage. Arju's dragon subduing divine kick was invincible and incomparably vigorous, possessing the might to subdue an enormous dragon, whereas Lung Feifen's true Azura slash had touched upon the third stage of the Anatta state, possessing an unimaginable explosive force. The two killer moves collided together, causing the entire arena to shake incessantly. In the end, Arju cast out a martial art phantom, and the four Jayas joined forces to attack Lung Feifen. True lifeless Azura slash. In addition to the true Azura chop, Lung Feifen also hid a terrifying killer move. With a flash of blade light, Arju's four killer moves were dispersed. "All right." Arju cheered loudly, his battle prowess soaring to the limit, instantly entering the Anatta rampage state. After 5 minutes, Lung Feifen was defeated by Arju. For Yi Chen, the 19th round no longer holds any meaning. Everyone sighed with emotion. Lung Feifen had been defeated by Arju, and most likely, he would not be a match for Yi Chen. Martial artists had their own strengths and weaknesses, but that was only relative to a small number of people. Most people still spoke with their battle prowess. As expected, in the 19th round, Lung Feifan lost to Yi Chen again. With this, the trials of God came to an end. The first place was Yi Chen. In second place was King Peerless Ju. The third was the lifeless swordsman, Lung Feifan. The fourth was tyrannical dragon Yang Ting. Fifth, Xia Xiaoshan. The sixth was the Green Lightning King, Jiyu Qingxue. The seventh was the Black Destruction King, Zhu Jian. Eighth, Seamless Illusionist Li Yifeng. The ninth was Azure Dragon Swordsman Xiao Shiyu. Lu Wenxiu and Yang Feihua tied for 10th place. As for the others, they were teleported out the moment the last battle of the 19th round ended. It's over. The ranking this time has been overturned. There are two newcomers in the top 10. One is number 1, and the other is number 5. Zhu Jian, the Black Destruction King, was pushed down from number 3 to number 7. Azure Dragon Swordsman Xiao Shiyu is so powerful, but he is only number 9. Lu Wenxiu and Yang Feihua are the most dangerous, and they are tied for 10th place. Yeah, our Zhu is known to be unparalleled under the heavens. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's sword arts have surpassed that. 19 rounds, 19 wins. Not a single one of them could pose too much of a threat to him. Even our Zhu could only cause him some insignificant injuries. The strongest attack and the strongest defense. He deserves the title of number 1. Outside the Golden Gate, everyone was talking about it. As the eliminated ones, they were already satisfied to be able to see such a peak battle. Many of them even had an epiphany and had made great progress in their martial arts. Young Master Yi is number 1. Lan Xian'er was a bit dazed. Although she was full of confidence in Yi Chen, in her opinion, Yi Chen being in the top 5 was already amazing. Defeating Zhu and becoming number 1 was something she had never expected. Sister, you really brought back an amazing person, Lan Xian'er murmured. Lan Xian'er murmured. If it wasn't for her sister Lan Xin'er, she definitely wouldn't have crossed paths with Yi Chen. Life was so wonderful. Every action had its own cause and effect. The ship of God arrived. The eliminated ones boarded the ship and were sent in the direction of God's planet. Congratulations, you are really amazing. You are the swordsman with the most potential I have ever seen. Zhu walked over and greeted Yi Chen. Same to you. Your martial path phantom is what surprised me. Martial path phantom was a divine technique. As long as one's combat ability was strong enough, the martial path phantom created would be strong enough. It would never be outdated. I obtained this martial art from a strange place. It has already been integrated into my blood. Zhu revealed some information about martial path phantom. Your momentary brilliance shocked me. The ability to stop space has already involved the rules of the universe. The power of the rules was extremely powerful. As the space profound progressed, the ability to stop space would inevitably become more frightening. Once Yi Chen's space profound reached completion, it was unknown what realm it would reach. Yi Chen was about to speak when the sky suddenly darkened. Unknowingly, a huge ship of God appeared in the sky. The ship of God is here. Zhu raised his head. I wonder what kind of place God's paradise is. Yi Chen had heard from Lan Xian'er that after passing the God trial field, one would have the qualifications to enter God's paradise. However, she didn't know what kind of place it was or what miraculous things were inside. Lu Wenxiu walked over and explained, God's paradise is a place that can raise one's strength. At the same time, it is also the place with the most geniuses. The God trial field is held once every 10 years. Every 10 years, about 10 geniuses will enter God's paradise. My brother is one of them. According to him, in God's paradise, one who is over 500 years old or whose cultivation base has reached the 7th layer can no longer stay. Therefore, in the past 500 years, there should be about 500 people in God's paradise. But, according to my brother, there are only 300 now. Can't one leave God's paradise without being over 500 years old or at the 7th layer? Yi Chen asked. Lu Wenxiu said, that's not the case. Apart from the first time, one has to pay a certain amount of shunbi to enter and leave God's paradise. Shunbi is the currency of God's paradise, and is indispensable. Shunbi. Yi Chen currently had 29 Shunbi. Being first in the running competition gave him 10 Shunbi, and winning one battle gave him 1 Shunbi. After 19 rounds, Yi Chen had 19 Shunbi, making it 29 Shunbi in total. At this moment, Arju said solemnly, "Here, we might be at the top. But, in God's paradise, we might be at the bottom. I've long been looking forward to God's paradise, but I don't know the real situation inside." As he spoke, Arju's solemn eyes burned with an intense fighting spirit. My brother said that although God's paradise can raise one's strength, it is also very cruel. Slowly letting out a breath, Lu Wanxiu said. A flight of stairs extended from the ship of God, and the 11 of them walked up. Soon, the ship of God took off, flying toward an unknown place. Chapter 1078. On the deck of the boat of God, the 11 of them were talking about the paradise of God. As far as I know, the paradise of God has an Upanishad tower. Aside from time and space, it has every kind of ultimacy. As long as you pay a certain amount of Shunbi, you can enter the Upanishad tower to study. Inside, almost every genius has completed 4 or 5 ultimacies. The speaker was Yang Fei Hua. The Upanishad tower requires Shunbi, but there are other places where you can get Shunbi, such as the God of War Pagoda, the Survival Pagoda, and the Hunting Pagoda. In short, Shunbi is very useful in the paradise of God. With Shunbi, your strength can increase by leaps and bounds. Without Shunbi, you can't even take a step forward, and you'll soon be surpassed by others. Green Lightning King Jiyu Qingxue also said, "The paradise of God is good, but once you go there, you'll know that there are always people better than you. If nothing unexpected happens, we'll be taught a lesson the first time we enter the paradise of God. This lesson isn't an insult, but a lesson to let us know that we're just an ordinary member of the paradise of God. There's nothing to be proud of." Zhu Jian glanced at Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled faintly. The other party was probably telling him that even though he was first in the divine trial field, he was only first among them. In the paradise of God, there was no lack of geniuses. Moreover, those geniuses cultivated 10 times more than them. Not long after, the ship of God stopped. Below them was a dreamlike paradise. The paradise was boundless, and there were misty clouds above it. The entire paradise was faintly discernible, like a mirage. It could be seen, but it could not be touched. It was very mysterious. When the stairs passed through the clouds, rippling patterns appeared. It wasn't hard to imagine that without the stairs, even if they could see the paradise, they wouldn't be able to enter it. "Let's go down." Arju was the first to go down. The long stairs extended all the way to the ground. As they walked down, the 11 of them looked around. What a majestic tower. That must be the God of War Pagoda. There are people fighting over there. They seem to be holding sticks. Are they hitting balls with sticks? That's a thunderbolt ball. It can train attack speed, reaction speed, and strength techniques. To the 11 of them, everything in the paradise of God was so novel. Their hearts, which were as calm as still water, began to ripple. Buzz. The moment the 11 of them landed, a figure of light surrounded by a halo appeared in front of them. "Hello, I am the God of the paradise of God, the manager of this place. Welcome to the paradise of God." Gods. Everyone was shocked. Although godly spirits were not real gods, they had the word God in their names, so they were certainly not ordinary. They wondered whether a godly spirit or a 9th layer life and death realm warrior would be stronger. From the moment you stepped into the paradise of God, you became a member of the paradise of God. The trial talisman is your paradise badge. It has many uses, as you will find out in the future. In the paradise of gods, there are no mandatory rules. Everything is voluntary. However, once you reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda or the 4th level of the Survival Tower, you must enter the Hunting Pagoda once every 3 months. Inside the Hunting Pagoda, you will encounter other members of the paradise of true gods. Your mission is to hunt them. Of course, it is also very likely that you will be hunted by them. For every enemy you hunt and obtain their paradise badge, you will obtain a certain amount of shunbi. The higher the level of their badge, the more shunbi you will obtain. The figure of light who claimed to be a god explained. Hunting tower? Other members of the paradise of true gods. There should be different levels in there, right? Jiyu Qingxue asked. The figure of light nodded. Indeed, the hunting pagoda has 6 floors, and every 2 floors have a different level. The first and second floors are primary, the third and fourth floors are intermediate, and the fifth and sixth floors are advanced. Among them, the first, third, and fifth floors are for individual hunting, while the second, fourth, and sixth floors are for team hunting. Accordingly, the badges are divided into 3 levels: primary, intermediate, and advanced. Once you reach the 5th floor or the 4th floor of the survival tower, your badges will be upgraded to primary badges. Once you reach the 7th floor or the 6th floor of the survival tower, your badges will be upgraded to intermediate badges. Once you reach the 9th floor or the 8th floor of the survival tower, your badges will be upgraded to the highest level. Different badges have different treatments in the paradise of gods. For example, entering the Upanishad tower costs 10 shunbi per day for a normal badge, 9 for a primary badge, 7 for an intermediate badge, and 5 for an advanced badge. Are the only ways to earn shunbi by entering the God of War pagoda, the survival tower, and the hunting pagoda? The one who asked the question was Xiao Shiyu. That's right. Apart from these 3 towers, there are no other ways to obtain shunbi, and shunbi can't be transferred between people. It's just a number, not a physical object. In the paradise of gods, without shunbi, it's hard to move even an inch. With shunbi, you can enter the Upanishad tower to comprehend the profound you want to comprehend. You can also enter the Tower of Time and adjust the time ratio to 1 to 10, or 1 to 100. After staying here for a few years, you'll realize that your progress here is 10 times or even 100 times faster than outside. Therefore, you must seize every opportunity to earn shunbi. Following the light figure's explanation, everyone had a new understanding of the importance of shunbi. In short, shunbi was a necessity to ensure their progress. An ordinary paradise of gods badge would cost 10 shunbi per day to enter the Upanishad tower, which meant 300 shunbi per month. This wasn't a small number. Among them, the one with the most shunbi was Yi Chen, who only had 29 shunbi. Arju had 28 shunbi. The others either had more than 20 or a dozen shunbi. The one with the least shunbi didn't even have a single shunbi. Therefore, even Yi Chen could only stay in the Upanishad tower for 2 days. The Tower of Time was even more magical. It could adjust the time ratio to 1 to 10, so 1 day inside was 10 days. If it was adjusted to 1 to 100, then 1 day inside was 100 days. If one stayed long enough, such as 1 month or 3 months, then it would be extremely terrifying. They were all top geniuses, so a few years was enough for them to make rapid progress. With the Tower of Time, they could treat a few years as dozens or even hundreds of years. However, it wasn't hard to imagine that such a magical Tower of Time would require a lot of shunbi. The current amount of shunbi they had wasn't enough. Worthy of the paradise of gods. Compared to it, the desolate star pales in comparison. Yi Chen sighed inwardly. Alright, there aren't many rules in the paradise of gods. Now, you can choose your own residence. Currently, there are only 380 people in the paradise of gods, so there are more than 100 empty residences. You can choose according to your preferences. However, as the manager of this place, I have to warn you that you are still very weak. Don't have any conflicts with the senior members of the paradise of gods, at least for the time being. I wish you all a pleasant life. After saying this, the light figure turned into specks of light and disappeared. Chapter 1079. The Paradise of God's residence was located in a mountain range. This mountain range had all kinds of environments, such as a small bridge, a red maple forest, a 3,000-foot waterfall, a boundless lake, and a mountain peak. Anyone could find their favorite living environment here. Yi Chen chose a bamboo house next to a small bridge. The bridge was an ancient stone bridge, and the water was a meandering river. Some aquatic plants were growing sparsely on the surface of the river, and a few fish were foraging under the plants. On the south side of the river was a picturesque bamboo house. The bamboo house was emerald green and emitted a sweet fragrance. Behind the bamboo house were tall and strong green bamboos. At first glance, one couldn't see into the depths of the bamboo forest. Clang! Yi Chen unsheathed the dragon spring sword and slashed a sword mark on the hill to the north of the river. The sword mark was 3 jong deep, and a terrifying sword intent spread out, lingering for a long time. It was a long journey from the mountain range to the center of the paradise of God. Although the gravity in the paradise of God was not as strong as that in the divine star, it was still 1/10 as strong. It was very difficult to fly there. There was a floating track in the center of the mountain range. Every day, 3 chariots of God would pass by this track, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening. The chariots of God were like sightseeing trains. There were 500 seats on them, no more, no less. They moved very fast, and didn't need much power. Once the time was up, the chariots of God would start automatically. Yi Chen and the others got on the chariots of God at noon. Soon, the 11 of them arrived at the gate of the center of the paradise of God. Are these the newcomers? Chem. There are 11 of them. There was a group of people standing at the gate. Even the weakest among them had a horrifying aura, as if they were wild beasts. Right then, they were looking at Yi Chen and the others as if they were little kids. I'm afraid this gate is not easy to enter. Lu Wenxiu said. They're just a group of people at the bottom. Arju's expression didn't change. The 11 of them stopped at the gate. Congratulations on coming to the paradise of God. The one who spoke was a young man with a tall and sturdy body, as tall as Yang Tingyu. What's the matter? Xiao Shiyu said coldly. According to the rules of the paradise of gods, newcomers have to accept the seniors' challenge. We were unlucky and drew the red lot. There was an unwritten rule in the paradise of God. Newcomers had to accept challenges from their seniors. This wasn't to bully newcomers, but rather to let newcomers know that they were no longer the all-powerful geniuses here. They were just normal people, and everything that happened outside had nothing to do with them. Then let's begin. Through various channels, everyone knew that there was such an unwritten rule in the paradise of gods, so they were not surprised. The one who spoke was Zhu Jian. The burly young man smiled. It was obvious that the other side knew about this rule and was already mentally prepared for it. However, knowing was one thing, but not many of them were actually aware of it. Everyone thought that they were peerless geniuses, and that they might be able to defeat the seniors from the paradise of gods. This was the purpose of the rule. It was to use absolute power to crush their arrogance and wake them up. Follow us. The burly young man and the others led the way. Soon, everyone arrived at a battle arena that looked like a Roman Colosseum. Turning around, the burly young man said, "Rules are dead, but people are alive. We can't work for nothing. How about this? The loser will give the winner 100,000 yuan stones. Of course, don't get me wrong, we haven't fallen to the level of scamming newcomers for yuan stones. You can give it or not, it's all up to you. I will give it to you." Zhu Jian walked onto the battle arena. All right, I will be your opponent. A figure flew into the battle arena. It was a skinny young man. I am Wan Donglei. The skinny young man introduced himself. Zhu Jian. Zhu Jian made the first move. He entered the selfless body state right away and performed a killer move, the meteor fist. Countless fist shadows were thrown at his opponent. Too slow. Wan Donglei turned into a shadow and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was right in front of Zhu Jian and kicked him in the chest. Puff. Blood spurted out of Zhu Jian's mouth as he was sent flying. How is this possible? Including Yi Chen, everyone was shocked. His opponent did not use his absolute battling power to blow Zhu Jian away. Instead, he had seen through the flaws of Zhu Jian's meteor exploding fist art, and then appeared in front of Zhu Jian at a shocking speed. Be it speed, power, or eyesight, they are all a couple of times better than Zhu Jian. Yi Chen thought to himself. After being kicked by Wan Donglei, Zhu Jian struggled to get up and threw out another punch. This time, it was the meteor fist. Do you think there's still a need to fight? Wn Donglei's kick had shattered the fist power of the meteor fist and said lightly, "Here." Zhu Jian's face turned green. He took out 10 boxes of yuan stones from his storage ring and threw them on the ground. Then, he turned around and walked to the audience seating. "I am Liao Qing. Who wants to challenge me?" Another person appeared. His eyes scanned through Yi Chen and the rest. "I will challenge you." Xiao Shiyu got off the stage. A sword artist. Not bad, sword artists have better eyesight than warriors at the same level. Liao Qing nodded slightly, looking relaxed. "Take this." Taking out the azure dragon sword, Xiao Shiyu threw out a sword attack toward her opponent. It was just a normal sword attack. When one was not clear about the opponent's actual strength, using a killing attack would result in the same situation as Zhu Jian. Ding! Liao Qing took out his dagger and blocked Xiao Shiyu's sword attack. Swoosh! At the same time, Liao Qing also held a dagger in his left hand and threw it out like lightning. Xiao Shiyu could not react in time, and a piece of flesh was cut off from his face. Ding! Dang! Subsequently, Liao Qing attacked Xiao Shiyu from both sides with his daggers, and his attacks were like a torrential storm. Xiao Shiyu only persisted for 5 or 6 rounds before her throat was slit by Liao Qing's dagger, causing blood to splatter out. "Thank you for letting me win." Liao Qing stopped attacking. Xiao Shiyu looked at his opponent in a daze. Then, he took out 10 boxes of yuan stones and put them on the ground. After Zhu Jian and Xiao Shiyu, Lu Wenxiu, Yang Feihua, Li Yifeng, Jiyu Qingxue, Xia Xiaoshan, and Yang Ting were defeated one after another. Finally, only Yi Chen, Zhu, and Leng Feifen had not fought yet. "Let me." Leng Feifen was the first to fight. "I'm Yang Zhon. Coincidentally, I'm also a saber user." Yang Zhon appeared in front of Leng Feifen with a long saber on his back. "This Leng Feifen doesn't look like an ordinary person. All of us here have the power of the 3rd level of the God of War pagoda. It's already good enough that the newcomers can make it to the 2nd level. There were 10 levels in the God of War pagoda, representing 10 different levels of combat power. Most of the newcomers had the power of the 1st level. Of course, it wouldn't take long for them to make it to the 2nd level, and it was already good enough that they had the power of the 2nd level. Among Zhu Jian's group of 8, Yang Feihua, Lu Wenxiu, Xiao Shiyu, Li Yifeng, Jiyu Qingxue, and Zhu Jian had the power of the 1st level, while Xia Xiaoshan and Yang Ting had the power of the 2nd level. Clang, 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 sparks flew as the 2 sabers clashed. Yang Zhon was surprised to find that he couldn't take down his opponent in a short time. There were a few times when he thought he had seen through his opponent's flaws, but his opponent had purposely exposed them. "This is more interesting." A smile appeared on Yang Zhon's face, and his saber attacks became fiercer and more cunning. "The saber is the overlord. Even if it's a dead end, I will still fight for a way out." Leng Feifen was obviously at a disadvantage, but judging from his aura, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Instead, he was suppressing his opponent. If not for his aura, Leng Feifen would have been defeated long ago. A well-trained saber user. His achievements in the future will be immeasurable. The burly young man was a little envious. Strength is strength. Lose. Yang Zhon sent Leng Feifen's blade of time flying with one slash and severed his head. But a shocking scene happened. Leng Feifen, who had lost his head and the blade of time, slashed at Yang Zhon with an illusory saber in his hands. Fart. Both of Yang Zhon's arms were severed at the elbows. It was a draw. Impressive. He has the power of the 3rd level of the God of War pagoda as soon as he came in, and it was a draw with Yang Zhon. Yes, although Yang Zhon was a little careless, his power is enough to enter the 3rd level of the God of War pagoda. There were strong and weak people on the 3rd floor. The strong ones were just a step away from entering the 4th floor, while the weak ones would probably fail the moment they entered the 3rd floor. "Me, Lu Hu, who will go first?" The burly young man smiled and said to Arju and Yi Chen. "I'll go first." Arju jumped into the arena. "Be careful. Although I didn't enter the 4th level, I'm only 1 step away," Lu Hu reminded him. "Don't worry, I won't be careless." Arju knew that these people were the weakest in the paradise of gods, but it didn't mean he could ignore them. Lung Feifen was only a little weaker than him, but he was still at a disadvantage. It was enough to prove these people's power. If Yang Zhon and Lung Feifen's battle was already shocking enough, then Arju and Lu Hu's battle was even more shocking. Lu Hu was the strongest among them, and he was only one step away from the 4th level of the God of War pagoda, but Arju could fight Lu Hu to a draw. He's really not easy to deal with. Lu Hu frowned slightly. It wasn't that his opponent didn't have any flaws, but he couldn't take advantage of them because there were 4 of them. If he fought against one of them, he would be attacked by the other 3. Unless he could defeat all 4 of them at once, but that was impossible. With his strength, he couldn't do that. Looks like I have to use this move. Lu Hu's body flashed. Every time he flashed, a dozen more Lu Hu would appear. After dozens of flashes, there were hundreds of Lu Hus, and every one of them was vivid and lifelike. Profound meaning of shadow. No, it's the profound meaning of yin, which is even more profound than the profound meaning of shadow. Yi Chen immediately saw through the meaning of Lu Hu's move. The profound meaning of yin included the profound meaning of shadow. There was yin and yang in the universe, and so did humans. These Lu Hu could be said to be real to a certain extent. They were like the other side of Lu Hu, so it was impossible to tell which was real and which was fake with just eyesight. Unless one had a special talent or had also cultivated the profound meaning of yin. Of course, there must be other ways to tell. Nothing was absolute in this world. It could be seen that Lu Hu's profound meaning of yin had not been perfected. There were some flaws, but there were too many of them. Trying to find the real one was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Arju only lasted for a while before he was defeated. Chapter 1080. This Arju is amazing. No wonder he's called King Peerless. They had all heard of Arju's name, and Arju and the others also knew about them. For example, Lu Hu was from the White Tiger Starfield's Tiger Soul planet. He was ranked 8th on the Heavenly King list, but it was obvious that he hadn't improved as much as Arju in the past decade. 10 years ago, Arju hadn't become famous yet, so he naturally wouldn't be Lu Hu's match. 10 years later, Arju was only slightly weaker than Lu Hu. But from another perspective, those at the bottom of the paradise of gods weren't doing so well. Because they lacked divine coins, their improvement wasn't much faster than those outside. Unless they could reach the 5th level of the God of War pagoda or the 4th level of the Survival Tower, they wouldn't be able to get more divine coins. I'm so jealous of you. You're already at the peak of the 3rd level of the God of War pagoda. It won't be long before you can reach the 4th or even the 5th level. As for me, I'll probably need another 10 years to reach the 5th level. Do you know? In the past 10 years, except for the first time, I've never left the paradise of gods. It's not that I don't want to go back, but I don't have enough divine coins to pay for it. Lu Hu sighed. Then I'll just make it to the 5th level, Arju said. Lu Hu was stunned for a moment, and then whispered to himself, you're right. They didn't know when, but they had developed a dependence on Shunbi. Without Shunbi, they felt like they had lost their will to fight. Little did they know that the reason they were able to enter the paradise of gods wasn't because of Shunbi, but because of their ambition. All right, I've lost to you. But given your strength, I'm afraid you're no match for him. Arju threw down 10 boxes of yuan stones and walked back to the audience. No match for him? Lu Hu looked at Yi Chen in confusion. They only had 10 people on their side, while Arju had 11. Therefore, he had to fight twice. But Arju's words had alarmed him. After Arju had lost to Lu Hu, Yi Chen had become everyone's focus. Yi Chen's amazing sword skills had won over Arju and the others. Now it was their turn. Step by step, Yi Chen walked to the arena and unsheathed the dragon spring sword. Take this, Kai. A wisp of blood danced in the air as a thin sword mark appeared on Lu Hu's cheek. As for himself, he explosively retreated. If he hadn't dodged fast enough, this sword might have pierced through his forehead. What a fast sword! Not only were Lu Hu and the others shocked, but Arju, Lung Feifen, Yang Ting, and the others were also shocked. Little did they know that Yi Chen had used the profound truths of speed in this attack, and the sword in his hand had become the Heavenly King stage treasure sword, the Dragon Spring Sword. With the two combined, his sword speed had reached a terrifying level. What kind of freak is this? Lu Hu couldn't be more astonished. In the 10 years he had spent in the Paradise of Gods, due to the limited amount of Shunbi, he had only entered the Upanishad Tower a few times. However, he had often played Thunderball with others. Thunderball was a very strange cultivation method. By hitting the ball quickly, it could train one's reaction speed, attack speed, and force exertion skills. Compared to 10 years ago, Lu Hu's inner qualities had improved a lot. His ability to see through flaws was also extraordinary. Wn Dong and Lei Liaoqing had easily defeated Zhu Jian and Xiao Shiyu. Lu Hu was even stronger than the previous two. However, that sword attack of Yi Chen's was terrifying in both speed and trajectory. He didn't even have time to react, let alone block it. Without any hesitation, Lu Hu used the shadow doppelgangers that had defeated Arju. The shadow doppelgangers had the profound truths of yin. Not only did they have the same aura as the real body, but they also couldn't be underestimated. Each doppelganger had 20% of the real body's power. Several hundred shadow doppelgangers stood between Yi Chen and Lu Hu, giving Lu Hu time to counterattack. Momentary glory. Facing hundreds of shadow doppelgangers, Yi Chen only used one sword attack. This sword attack froze the space, and all the shadow doppelgangers froze. The Zhen Yuan contained in their bodies wasn't enough to resist the power of momentary glory. Although Lu Hu himself was extremely powerful, he felt like he was stuck in a swamp. Every move he made was extremely difficult. Passing through hundreds of shadow doppelgangers, Yi Chen suddenly appeared 10 meters in front of Lu Hu. Too scary. Is he still a newbie? Lu Hu's Zhen Yuan burst out, turning into a fierce tiger phantom. This tiger phantom shook its head and tail, looking extremely fierce. Under the impact of the tiger phantom, the power of momentary glory weakened a lot. Lu Hu took this opportunity to counter Yi Chen's momentary glory with a punch. Fierce tiger fist art. Clang. Sparks exploded as Yi Chen's dragon spring sword stabbed into Lu Hu's fist. The sword's blade bent, but the bones in Lu Hu's right arm were also broken inch by inch. Blood splashed out. The dragon spring sword straightened, and Yi Chen used the momentum to jump into the sky, sweeping down with his sword. Poochie. Lu Hu's head flew high into the sky. Yi Chen won. Among all the young sword artists in history, he is at least in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. Yang Feihua sighed. The universe had existed for countless years, and nobody knew how many years Yi Chen had been in the top 10. One could imagine how high Yang Feihua's evaluation of Yi Chen was, and how shocked she was. God of War Pagoda's 4th floor strength. Lu Hu, who had reattached his head with his undying body, looked at Yi Chen, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had just entered the God of Paradise, and he already had the strength of God of War Pagoda's 4th floor. Thank you for letting me win. Putting away the dragon spring sword, Yi Chen cupped his fists. Here are your 100,000 yuan stones. Lu Hu took out 10 boxes of yuan stones and put them on the ground. Yi Chen didn't refuse and put them away. After a while, he was preparing to break through to the 4th sky of life and death realm. At that time, he would need a lot of yuan stones, so it was better to be prepared. What a monster. Luckily, my opponent is not him. Otherwise, I would have been so embarrassed. Wn Dong, Lei Liaoqing, and the rest were speechless. Even Lu Hu, the strongest among them, had lost. They would be trash if they went up. They were all newbies, but why was the gap between them so big? Only Lung Feifen and Arju were slightly more eye-catching. Lu Hu, why are you so useless? You lost to a newbie. A voice was heard. Everyone looked over and saw a few figures at the entrance of the arena. The one who spoke was a strong young man. Taihe. I lost to him wholeheartedly. How am I useless? Lu Hu said with a frown. A loss is a loss. No need to find excuses. The bulky young man walked down step by step, his eyes landing on Yi Chen. Lu Hu didn't want to argue with him, so he said to Yi Chen, Be careful, Tai He has already reached the 4th floor. Yi Chen nodded and looked at Tai He. Please. Since he had appeared, he must have bad intentions. Oh, you took the initiative to challenge me. Alright, I'll give you a chance. Tai He had originally planned to teach Yi Chen a lesson, lest he broke the rules. However, he didn't expect Yi Chen to take the initiative to challenge him. Tai He, don't be careless. The others said to Tai He. I know what I'm doing. Tai He naturally didn't dare to be careless. Since Yi Chen could defeat Lu Hu, he most likely had the power of the 4th floor. Although there were strong and weak people on the 4th floor, he couldn't be careless. Make your move. Tai He's weapon was a crescent halberd. It was more than 3 meters long and looked very sharp. Just as he finished his sentence, Yi Chen's attack had arrived. It was still the fast profound. That moment of glory could only release its power within 3,000 meters. Beyond that, the effect would be almost negligible. It was also the reason why he had approached Lu Hu from the beginning, and it was the same now. Ding! Tai He's battle power was indeed not something Lu Hu could compare with. He lifted the crescent halberd slightly and blocked Yi Chen's sharp sword. Pretty fast. His feet exerted force. Tai He used the sword's power to back off. He realized that it was better to keep some distance from Yi Chen. Otherwise, his crescent halberd wouldn't be able to unleash its power at all. However, in the next moment, he realized that his speed had slowed down. Yi Chen's second sword attack came right after. This sword attack made the space freeze. It was the profound meaning of space. No wonder Lu Hu lost. Tai He didn't see the battle between Yi Chen and Lu Hu. He only came in after their battle ended. But, don't underestimate me. Anatta realm. Tai He's Anatta realm was the same as Lung Feifen's. He had already touched the 3rd level. Moreover, he was at the peak of the 5th sky of life and death realm, which was 1 sky higher than Lung Feifen. As Tai He's battle power went all out, a majestic power burst out. The space freeze power was immediately repelled. Cold moon cutting the sky. After repelling the space freeze power, Tai He attacked Yi Chen with his halberd. This was his ace attack. A green crescent moon appeared in the void, attacking rapidly. Boom! The sword and the halberd clashed, and Yi Chen backed out dozens of miles. A faint green light lingered around his body, looking extremely sharp. Fortunately, his protective sword intent was powerful enough, so he didn't get hurt at all. Tai He, Lu Hu had said earlier that the loser would have to give the winner 100,000 yuan stones. I wonder if you agree or not. If the opponent didn't agree, Yi Chen didn't plan to continue the battle. He would just admit defeat. Don't tell me you think I will lose to you. Tai He opened his eyes wide. Nothing is absolute in this world. How would you know if you don't try? Yi Chen laughed. Alright, 100,000 yuan stones is nothing in my eyes. I would like to see how you can beat me. Tai He was angered by Yi Chen, and his aura increased again. In front of him, Yi Chen took a deep breath. 3 flowers appeared on his head, 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue. 3-flower Dao. It was the 3-flower Dao that Yuan Emperor had taught to Yi Chen. After several years of cultivation, Yi Chen had already cultivated the 3-flower Dao to the same level as Yuan Emperor. Once he used it, his spirit, qi, and spirit would multiply, and his battle power would multiply as well. The same momentary glory was performed by Yi Chen again. Not good. The space freeze power has doubled. Tai He felt like he was carrying a huge ancient mountain on his back. Every movement he made was extremely strenuous. Even his bones were groaning, and the Jin Yuan circulation in his body had slowed down. Puff! Yi Chen's sword was ruthless as it pierced through Tai He's forehead. Chapter 1081. Everyone stared at Yi Chen, including those who came with Tai He. In their eyes, Yi Chen was like the center of the world, giving them immense pressure. And the dragon spring sword in his hand was like the Grim Reaper's weapon. It was an inanimate object, but it made their hearts tremble. I lost. The sword wound on his forehead slowly healed. Tai He looked at Yi Chen in shock. If that sword attack had been fully unleashed, even if he did not die, he would have been severely injured. If it came again, he would definitely die. Of course, this was the paradise of gods. Even if he died, he could be revived. He was not worried about that. Thank you. Yi Chen cupped his fists. A loss is a loss. Here are 100,000 yuan stones. He threw down 10 boxes of yuan stones. Then, he said, with your talent, I'm afraid you will soon reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda and qualify to enter the hunting tower. By then, there will be many teams inviting you to join. Let me remind you, when choosing a team, you must be careful. If you are not careful, you will die. My good friend died in the hunting battlefield because of his carelessness in choosing a team. His team was completely annihilated. The Paradise of Gods originally had 500 people, but now there are only 380 people. Just know how dangerous it is. With that, He and his friends left. Thank you for the reminder. Yi Chen glanced at his back as he left. What He said is right. We must be extremely cautious in choosing a team. In the battlefield of hunting, everyone is both a hunter and a prey. The stronger the team we choose, the more reasonable the composition of the members, the greater the chance of survival. In these 10 years, I have also lost a few friends in the battlefield of hunting. Lu Hu sighed. I will think about it. Not to mention that Yi Chen did not have the power to reach the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda. Even if he did, he would not do it. He wanted to use Shunbi to increase his power first, and then see if he could reach the 4th level of the life and death realm in a short period of time. When everything was ready, he would try to reach the 5th level and qualify to enter the hunting tower. Then we will leave first. Lu Hu and the others bid farewell. In the center of the Paradise of Gods, there were 2 majestic towers. One was the God of War Pagoda, and the other was the Survival Pagoda. The God of War Pagoda was 10,000 meters tall, and each level was 1,000 meters tall. Of course, this was only from the outside. There was definitely something more to it. How unlucky. I didn't pass through the 4th level again. My yin-yang true dragon energy has already been cultivated to the great success level. Logically speaking, I should be able to pass through it. I was just a little bit away last time. 2 young men walked out from the entrance of the 1st level of the God of War Pagoda. Me too. At the critical moment, the opponent's strength suddenly erupted. There's no way to block it. The other young man was also quite helpless. Hey! These 11 people seem to be newcomers. I don't recognize them. They must be here to challenge the God of War Pagoda. I wonder which level they can reach. I reckon that most of them are on the 1st level. There won't be more than 3 on the 2nd level. This has always been the case. The 2 of them had originally planned to leave, but after some thought, they decided to stay. They wanted to see how strong this batch of newcomers were. Anyway, challenging the God of War Pagoda would not take much time, especially for newcomers. Good luck. Yi Chen was the first to enter the God of War Pagoda's entrance. Good luck, everyone. The other 10 also entered the God of War Pagoda. This was a fiery land of lava. Scarlet flames erupted everywhere, and the sky was dark red. From time to time, purplish-red lightning danced in the sky. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Standing in the air, Yi Chen scanned the area, searching for his opponent. Rumble. Abruptly, the ground beneath Yi Chen split open. A scarlet hand the size of a mountain grabbed at Yi Chen, accompanied by a towering wave of fire. Lava giant. Yi Chen immediately knew what kind of creature his opponent was. The lava giant was a natural life form with both fire and earth attributes. It was born with boundless strength and had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Even Yi Chen would vomit blood if he was grabbed by the lava giant. Of course, it was fine as long as he was not grabbed. The lava giant's only weakness was the lava heart in its chest. It was a relatively fragile crystal. As long as one had the annihilation crystal, they would be able to kill the lava giant. However, the lava giant was not only extremely huge, but its defense was also very high. Ordinary monarchs could only break the surface of the lava at most. It was extremely difficult to kill it. Unfortunately, Its opponent was Yi Chen. Facing this scorching lava hand, Yi Chen unsheathed his dragon spring sword and slashed down. The sword light blurred and vibrated countless times in an instant. Without a sound, the lava hand and the lava arm were split into two. Then, the lava land was also split, revealing the lava giant's corpse. Its lava heart had already been destroyed by Yi Chen's sword light. You have passed the first level. Reward, 10 Shunbi. A voice came down from the sky. Buzz. The paradise badge flashed, and a light screen appeared in front of Yi Chen. The light screen showed that he had 39 Shunbi, 10 Shunbi for the first level. Not bad. Many a little makes a mickle. The first level already had 10 Shunbi. The second level would probably not be any less. After all, there were only 10 levels in the entire God of War pagoda. 5 people walked out from the entrance of the first level of the God of War pagoda. They were Yang Feihua, Lu Wenxiu, Xiao Shiyu, Li Yifeng, and Jiyu Qingxue. Lu Wenxiu shook her head and sighed. The lava giant's defense is too high. We can't even attack its lava heart. I didn't expect the first level to be so difficult. I thought we could make it to the second level. Yang Feihua was a little disappointed. We are the weaklings here, so we have to work even harder. Yang Feihua was not the only one who was disappointed. Xiao Shiyu and the rest were also very disappointed. They had just arrived at the Paradise of Gods, but they had already lost to Lu Hu and the rest. Now, they could not even pass the first level of the God of War pagoda. Although they did not seem to care about fame, as long as they were human, they would have weaknesses. It was just that they did not have the opportunity to expose these weaknesses usually. Let's keep it up. I wonder how many levels they can reach. Li Yifeng was very calm. As an illusionist, combat was not their strength. It was normal that they could not pass the first level. Zhu Jian's attack is very strong. He should be able to reach the second level. Xia Xiaoshan and Yang Ting should be able to reach it too. Jiyu Qingxue speculated. 5 failed the first level, and the other 5 will most likely enter the second level. The quality of this batch of newcomers is not bad. The ratio is higher than usual. The 2 young people who came out earlier discussed in low voices. After a while, Zhu Jian came out. Zhu Jian, which level? Lu Wenxiu asked. The second level. Congratulations. I was just lucky. Zhu Jian was expressionless. The first level focused on attack, so although he was not as strong as Jiyu Qingxue, he could pass the first level and reach the second level. Soon, Xia Xiaoshan and Yang Ting also came out. Like Zhu Jian, both of them failed on the second level, but they lasted longer than Zhu Jian. No way. There are 3 more who can reach the third level. After half a cup of tea's time, the 2 young men standing not far away looked at each other. After a while, Lung Feifen came out. Followed by Arju. As everyone had expected, the 2 of them reached the third level. How much is the reward for the second level? Xia Xiaoshan asked. Reaching the third level did not mean that they had passed the third level. It only meant that they had passed the second level. 30, Lung Feifen replied. That's a lot. The first level only gave 10, and the second level gave 30. Xia Xiaoshan pouted. Don't be greedy. We didn't get a single Shunbi. Looks like we can only pin our hopes on the survival tower. Let's hope we can pass the first level. Yang Feihua gritted her teeth. I advise you to be more pessimistic. The survival tower is even harder than the God of War tower. Only by reaching the 5th level can you upgrade your Paradise badge to a beginner badge. But as long as you reach the 4th level, you will be able to upgrade it. You should know the reason. One of the 2 young people could not help but say, How hard is the first level of the survival tower? Lu Wenxiu frowned. It is almost the same as the second level, but the reward is much higher. The first level has 30 Shunbi, and the second level has 60 Shunbi. Through the conversation, everyone came to know these 2's names. One was Lin Chun, and the other was Kui Yi. The 2 had been in the God Paradise for 20 years, but they were still stuck in the 4th floor of the tower. The cultivation of martial artists would become more and more difficult the further one went. One would not be able to advance by leaps and bounds like before. Otherwise, life and death kings would have a lifespan of 100,000 years, and they would be invincible in 100 or 200 years. After chatting for a while, Lin Chun suddenly said, "Oh right, what is the name of your partner who has not come out yet?" "Yi Chen." Lu Wenxiu said. "Yi Chen. What a good name. I believe it won't be long before he becomes the most popular person in the God Paradise. He will be the target of all the beginner teams. You guys have to remind him to be careful when choosing teams." Kui Yi said. "Yeah." Lu Wenxiu and the rest nodded. They realized that the members of the God Paradise were not bad. Although Lu Hu and the rest had taught them a lesson, it was the rule, and they did not humiliate them. Tai He, who came later, was also not that hateful. He even said the same words as Kui Yi. Of course, there were all kinds of birds in a big forest. They would probably run into some friendly ones. Another 10 minutes passed, and Yi Chen came out. "Yi Chen, you reached the 4th level?" Lu Wenxiu was a bit uncertain. "Yeah, the 4th level was very hard. I can't believe it was a 6th layer life and death realm demon king. There were 9 layers of life and death realm, and there was a gap between the 6th and 7th layers. At present, he could only contend with ordinary 6th layer life and death realm demon kings. But, if he encountered a powerful one, he would not be able to fight. After all, cultivation was one thing, and battle power was another. The latter included the former, and the former was only a part of the latter. "Yi Chen, I am Lin Chun, and this is my friend Kui Yi. Nice to meet you." A super newbie like Yi Chen, who would not want to get to know him? Perhaps they would have the chance to fight side by side in the future. "Nice to meet you guys as well. Come, let's go to the survival tower," Lin Chun suggested. Just like that, the group walked toward the survival tower. Chapter 1082. The difficulty of the survival tower is not comparable to the battle god tower. Although I made it to the 4th floor, I only made it to the 3rd floor, and it was very difficult. Of course, there are some powerful warriors with similar battle power and survival ability, but they are too rare. In the God Paradise, only 1 out of 100 people can make it. Lin Chun explained the difficulty of the survival tower to Yi Chen and the rest. Soon, the 13 of them arrived at the entrance of the survival tower and entered. The 1st floor of the survival tower was a vast jungle, filled with poisonous miasma and countless poisonous creatures. Life and death realm warriors would not feel anything at first, but as time went on, they would gradually feel uncomfortable, and their battle power would be greatly reduced. The longer they stayed in there, the more they would be affected. If they wanted to pass the 1st floor, they would have to go through the whole jungle as fast as possible. The first to be eliminated was Li Yifeng. He was an illusion master, and his survival ability was both strong and weak. It all depended on how one looked at it. Obviously, Li Yifeng was not good at surviving in such a harsh environment. The second to be eliminated was Yang Feihua. The third was Lu Wenxiu. The 4th was Xiao Shiyu. The 5th was Zhu Jian. The 6th was Jiyu Qingxue. Jiyu Qingxue had already passed through most of the jungle, but there were simply too many poisonous creatures here. These poisonous creatures came in all shapes and sizes. Some could corrode true essence, and some could turn into tiny particles that could penetrate one's protective true essence. There were also some that dominated in numbers, with millions and millions of them surrounding her, making it difficult for her to even take a step forward. Not long after Jiyu Qingxue came out, Xia Xiaoshan and Yang Ting came out as well. The natural environment of the 2nd floor was not that bad, but compared to the 1st floor, it was several times more dangerous. Once you entered the 2nd floor, you would be in a prison, guarded by demons and evil spirit race demon kings. What you had to do was to follow the prison map provided by the Paradise's badge and escape from this prison. During this time, you would have to fight head-on, sneak attacks, and other strategies. Therefore, it was not enough to just be powerful. You had to have a calm mind and the ability to adapt to situations. Otherwise, if you only relied on your power, You would not be able to pass the second floor unless you could reach the fifth floor. Clang. Cutting down the prison wall, Lung Feifen was about to rush out, but he stopped himself. Outside the prison walls were dozens of evil kings and demon kings. With his strength, it was impossible for him to fight his way out. However, Lung Feifen did not look depressed or dispirited. Instead, a hint of passion flashed across his face. Compared to his previous life, the paradise of God had brought him more passion and fighting spirit. The more difficult it was, the happier he was. Lung Feifen didn't pass through the second level, but Arju did. It was relatively easy for him because his martial arts phantom allowed him to have 3 doppelgangers with powerful battle strength. Relying on these 3 doppelgangers, Arju didn't have to expend much effort to escape from this prison filled with traps and devil kings and evil kings. Interesting. This is too interesting. I've long heard that more than 100 life stars in the Black Tortoise starfield have been invaded by the demons and other powerful races. There's a king's prison there, used to imprison the king's prison. It seems this survival tower's second floor is an imitation of the king's prison. Second floor passed. Reward, 60 Shunbi. Yi Chen had also passed the second floor of the survival tower. The second floor might be difficult for others, but to him, it was like his backyard. He could leave and stay as he pleased. This wasn't because his strength had reached the 5th floor of the God of War pagoda, but mainly because his ability to freeze space was too powerful. Just releasing his sword aura was enough to freeze them. He didn't even need to use the instant sword domain, let alone the instant brilliance. When he reached the 3rd floor, Yi Chen was stunned. The 3rd floor was actually a white dwarf star. On the white dwarf star, there were also demon kings and evil kings. Other than them, there was another evil race, the Yaksha king of the Yaksha race. On the other side of the white dwarf star, there was a platform. As long as one stood on the platform, he would pass the 3rd floor. There weren't many enemies on the white dwarf star, only about 30 of them. But judging from their aura, they were all extremely powerful. Almost none of them were weaker than the Black Destruction King, Zhu Jian. There were 7 or 8 of them who were stronger than Zhu Jian. They had reached the level of Xia Xiaoshan or Yang Ting, and the strongest one was no weaker than Lung Feifen. There was a demon king and a Yaksha king respectively. If he was surrounded by 30 enemies, even Yi Chen wouldn't dare to say that he could pass. Of course, Yi Chen didn't intend to pass the 3rd floor. Passing the 3rd floor and reaching the 4th floor meant that his paradise badge would be upgraded to a basic badge. Within 3 months, he had to enter the hunting tower to hunt. He didn't want to be in such a hurry. After all, he was still a little weak now, and the chances of him dying in the hunting tower were very high. On the white dwarf star, the strong gravity made it impossible for Yi Chen to fly. He could only run on foot. Sometimes he would run in a straight line, sometimes he would take a roundabout route, and sometimes he would run in circles. He tried his best not to let the enemies gather together and split them up. Just like that, Yi Chen killed one enemy after another until there was only a demon king and a Yaksha king left. The Yaksha king's skin was stone grey, and he had a pair of wings on his back. In terms of top combat power, the Yaksha race might not be as strong as the demons, but in terms of average combat power, the Yaksha race surpassed the demons. It was said that there were no weaklings among the demons, but all the Yaksha race were strong. In the universe, the Yaksha race was definitely one of the strongest races. Of course, the demons were the strongest race. So strong. After Arju killed 7 enemies, he was finally surrounded. He only lasted 1 round before he was blasted into pieces by countless light beams and teleported out of the survival tower. "Hey, you made it to the 3rd floor?" Lin Chun came out with Arju. He was very surprised. One had to know that Arju's result in the God of War pagoda was the 3rd floor, and now he was also at the 3rd floor of the survival tower. Didn't this mean that Arju's combat power and survival power were equal? Strong people with equal combat power and survival power were 1 in 100 in the paradise of gods. He didn't expect Arju to be one of them. Not bad. Arju was not proud. Impressive. I have a feeling that a few of your batch of rookies might become famous people in the paradise of gods in the future. Lin Chun was very emotional. No matter which batch it was, Arju was the most outstanding one. That Lung Feifen was also very strong. As for that Yi Chen, he was inhuman. Kui Yi's survival power was much stronger than Lin Chun's. He came out after a long while. In the end, only Yi Chen was left. Hey, Kui Yi, do you think Yi Chen can pass the third floor? Lin Chun asked. It's a little difficult, but I don't know why, but I feel that his survival power is stronger than his combat power. However, if I were him, I would not choose to pass the third floor even if my survival power is strong. After all, it's too early to enter the hunting tower now. It's not wise, Kui Yi said in a low voice. That's true. Lin Chun nodded. Just like that, the 12 people waited for Yi Chen outside. After about 5 minutes, Yi Chen came out. Facing everyone's questions, Yi Chen said, I didn't pass the third floor. Actually, he could have passed. As he had never seen the Yaksha King before, Yi Chen had a good fight with him. After killing the Yaksha King, a demon king could not stop him at all. However, he did not want to pass the third floor and be killed by a demon king. A total of 219 shunbi. I should be able to use them for a while. After everyone separated, Yi Chen activated his badge. It showed that he had 219 shunbi. Before coming to the Paradise of Gods, Yi Chen had 29 shunbi. The first floor of the God of War pagoda had given him 10 shunbi, 30 shunbi, and 60 shunbi. The first floor of the Survival pagoda had given him 30 shunbi, and the second floor had given him 60 shunbi. In total, he had 219 shunbi. Let's go to the Earth Upanishad Tower first. Among all the ultimacies that Yi Chen had comprehended, his metal, water, and fire ultimacies were all completed. The metal and water ultimacies were autumn water, the water and fire ultimacies were merciless water and fire, and the metal and earth ultimacies were sky extinction swords. Yi Chen planned to complete the earth ultimacy first. After all, the sky extinction swords were just below moment of glory and merciless water and fire. It was already very powerful before it was completed. Once it was completed, even if its power was not as strong as merciless water and fire, it would still be very sharp. In terms of breaking through defenses, the sky extinction swords with its extreme vibration power was even stronger than merciless water and fire. There were many Upanishad towers in the Paradise of Gods. Yi Chen found the Earth Upanishad Tower and entered it. The Upanishad Tower would deduct shunbi every day until you used up all your shunbi. Yi Chen had enough shunbi to last for 21 days. He did not know if it was enough, but he had to try. What a fast speed of comprehension. But soon, Yi Chen realized that he was wrong. The speed of comprehension in the Upanishad Tower was shockingly fast. One day in the Upanishad Tower was equivalent to 100 days in the outside world. Although the closer one was to completion, the harder it was to comprehend, it was obvious that it was easier to comprehend it to completion in the Upanishad Tower. Besides Yi Chen, the others did not choose to enter the Upanishad Tower to comprehend their profoundness. Instead, they entered the Martial Technique Tower. As the name suggested, the Martial Technique Tower was used to practice martial techniques. The fee was not high either. The first level only cost 1 shunbi a day. Among the 10 of them, the lowest had more than 10 shunbi. Arju had as many as 158 shunbi. They wanted to improve their martial techniques in the shortest time possible and then continue to challenge the God of War pagoda to earn more shunbi. This was a virtuous cycle. While Yi Chen and the others were focused on cultivating, the Paradise of Gods was abuzz with news about this year's batch of newcomers. What? That's impossible, right? This year's batch of newcomers has reached the 4th level of the God of War pagoda, and 2 of them are equivalent to the 3rd level. Why would I lie to you? The newcomer who has reached the 4th level of the God of War pagoda is called Yi Chen. Lu Hu and Tai he both lost to him. The other 2 are called Arju and Lung Feifen. They are both super newcomers. That's scary. With their talents, they will probably enter the hunting pagoda in less than 1 or 2 years. They might become the leaders of the Paradise of Gods in the future. No matter what, let's make friends with them first. If there's a chance in the future, we can invite them to join our team. As long as we invite one of them, our team's strength will definitely increase greatly. The scary thing about these geniuses is not their current strength, but their potential and speed of improvement. Yes, we must make friends with them. At least, we can be normal friends. The paradise of gods, which had been quiet for a long time, began to stir. Chapter 1083. 12 days later, Yi Chen's Earth Profound was completed. Of course, it cost him 120 divine coins. Although the Earth Ultimacy had reached perfection, it would still take some time for it to merge with the Metal Ultimacy and make the Sky Absolute Sword even more perfect. After all, the Earth Ultimacy that had merged with the Metal Ultimacy before was greatly different. To perfect the Tianju sword, he naturally had to go to the Martial Skill Tower. The Martial Skill Tower could create an environment suitable for practicing martial skills according to one's own imagination. What Yi Chen created was a world completely composed of metal and earth yuan qi. This world was not large, only 1,000 miles in radius. Below it was a thick and solid ground, and in the sky, numerous mountain-sized golden iron balls floated. The rich earth yuan qi and metal yuan qi clashed together, creating all kinds of incredible phenomena. Standing in this world, Yi Chen felt that he had a much better understanding of the Tianju sword. Calming himself down, Yi Chen gradually immersed himself in the sword aura of the Tianju sword. After a long while, Yi Chen pulled out the dragon spring sword and simply swung it out. Buzz! Fine ripples spread out, and the golden iron balls in the sky exploded one after another. A long sword mark appeared on the ground, which looked like a huge canyon. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 9 days had passed. On this day, Yi Chen suddenly had an idea. The golden and yellow lines combined together in a very mysterious way. Just like this. Suddenly opening his eyes, Yi Chen held his sword with both hands and threw out a sword attack that looked slow but was actually extremely fast. Pop! This part of the world trembled. In the next moment, everything within the range of the sword force disappeared. It was as if a bubble had burst. It was an understatement. The metal and earth profound has been merged even more deeply. Yi Chen thought about that sword attack. As everyone knew, normally, top-rank profound martial skills contained 2 kinds of profound, such as Yi Chen's Autumn Water, Merciless Water and Fire, and the Tianju sword. As for Momentary Glory, it belonged to a special top-rank profound martial skill. A martial art contained 2 kinds of profoundness. Naturally, they had to coordinate with each other and not cause any internal friction. If they were to go even deeper, they would fuse together. The fusion was just a process. The deeper the fusion, the greater the power. At this moment, the metal ultimacy and earth ultimacy of the Sky Absolute Sword had fused even more perfectly. In terms of pure power, it had actually surpassed the Merciless Water and Fire, as well as the Moment of Glory. Of course, the Moment of Glory was powerful because of its ability to stop space. The first floor of the Martial Skill Tower only cost 1 shunbi per day. 9 days meant 9 shunbi. Now, Yi Chen had 90 shunbi left. Yi Chen decided not to use these 90 shunbi for the time being. Before he was ready to enter the hunting tower, every single shunbi was precious. Yi Chen exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and exited the Martial Skill Tower. Bang 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 bang. The sound of heavy objects hitting each other was endless, like a violent storm. This was an outdoor stadium that was 1,000 miles long and 100 miles wide. The ground of the stadium was completely made of a special metal, and it looked smooth without any bumps or bumps. The stadium was also surrounded by metal walls that were thousands of meters tall. Within the stadium, there was only one stand in the south, and there were exactly 500 seats on the stand. At this moment, there were dozens of people sitting on the stand. On the stadium, 2 people were holding 5-foot-long metal sticks and hitting a ball. Swoosh! A yellow light flashed. The long-haired young man couldn't react in time. The yellow light brushed past his face and hit the metal wall before bouncing back. I'm impressed. I've already tried my best, but I can only last 30 rounds against you, the long-haired young man said in admiration. Haha, I've already reached the 6th level of the God of War Tower. If I can't beat you, I'll be a joke. He had short black hair and was clad in metal armor. This was a very sturdy and calm young man. You'd better find other opponents. I don't want to be beaten by you anymore. The long-haired young man smiled and returned to the stand. Let me try you. At that moment, a young man walked down the stand. It was Arju. You must be this year's super newcomer, Arju. That's good. I want to see how strong the so-called super newcomers are. The sturdy young man had a smile on his face. He had already heard about this year's 3 super newcomers. This Arju could reach the 3rd level of the God of War Tower and the Survival Tower the moment he entered. He was definitely a rare prodigy from the 4 major planets. Of course, he still had to verify whether he was a prodigy or not. A real prodigy could not be weak in other aspects other than strength. This is the Thunderball. Yi Chen had arrived at the stand and sat near Lu Wenxiu, Yang Feihua, and the rest. You're here. Lu Wenxiu and the rest looked over. Other than Lung Feifen and Arju, they had already used up their Shunbi. They did not have the confidence to reach the 2nd level of the God of War Pagoda and the Survival Tower in a short time, so they came to watch others play Thunderball. Lu Wenxiu said, Arju's opponent is the leader of a low-level team, Huang Hengfei. He is very good at Thunderball. Other than that, he is also one of the top low-level members of the Paradise of Gods. Those who reached the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda or the 4th level of the Survival Tower would become a low-level member of the Paradise of Gods. At that time, they could join a low-level team. Of course, they could also form their own low-level team. Since Huang Hengfei was the leader of a low-level team, he was naturally very strong. You can serve first, Huang Hengfei said. Okay. Arju did not decline. He held the thunderball in his left hand and threw it high. Bam! When the thunderball fell to a height of 2 meters, Arju raised his metal rod and hit the thunderball. The thunderball was a little soft and very elastic. As the metal rod hit, the thunderball was compressed into a flat shape and shot out at an astonishing speed, drawing a yellow line in the air. So that's how it is. Yi Chen squinted his eyes. How the thunderball was shot out and how it flew at such a high speed was clear in his eyes. Seriously speaking, the thunderball was a bit like a baseball, but also a bit like a tennis ball. However, the truly frightening part was that it could be infused with Jin Yuan and Qi power. Ordinary people could already reach an unbelievable speed, but 2 life and death kings could reach a frightening speed. It was a test of reaction speed and attack speed. If the reaction speed was not fast enough, one would not be able to see the trajectory of the ball. If the attack speed was not fast enough, one would not be able to catch the thunderball and counterattack. Quite fast. Huang Hengfei held the metal rod with one hand and easily counterattacked. Bam! Arju immediately hit back. Careful. This time, Huang Hengfei did not hit the ball in a straight line, but at an oblique angle. This way, if Arju wanted to catch the ball, he would have to move to an oblique angle. If he was a bit slower, he might not be able to catch the ball. This little difficulty is not difficult for me. Arju's movement speed was extremely fast. With a flicker in the air, he arrived before the thunderball. Bam! Arju also hit an oblique angle. It's your first time playing the thunderball, yet you are so skilled. As expected of a super rookie, Huang Hengfei was a little surprised. Playing the thunderball seemed simple, but it was definitely not so easy to play for the first time. One must know that the thunderball was infused with energy. If one wanted to hit the thunderball back, one had to disperse the energy inside and then infuse one's own energy. This process was very short. Unknowingly, more than 10 rounds had passed. Arju is in danger, Yi Chen suddenly said. What do you mean? Yang Feihua thought that her eyesight was very good, but she did not see anything special. Before Yi Chen could say anything, Arju suddenly missed. Although he received the thunderball, the angle of his return was very bad. It was clearly a forward volley, but it became a high throw. It's a spinning ball. Yang Feihua suddenly understood. It was very obvious that Huang Hengfei had added a strong spinning force to the ball just now. If one used an ordinary method to catch the ball, it would naturally cause the ball to go out of control. One had to use the same spinning force to neutralize it. This was not a test of one's reaction speed and attack speed, but one's ability to exert force. Leaping up high, Huang Hengfei smashed a Ju. "Thank you for letting me win." Huang Hengfei landed. "A loss is a loss. Here are 10,000 prime val stones." Ju took out a box of prime val stones and placed it on the ground. Playing Thunderball required a wager. Under normal circumstances, the wager was 10,000 prime val stones. Of course, if you had a conflict with the other party, you could negotiate with the other party to increase the wager. 100,000, 1 million, as long as you had enough prime val stones, you could bet. In the paradise of gods, playing Thunderball was undoubtedly a popular entertainment activity. It could not only entertain the body and mind, but it could also improve one's quality. Huang Hengfei smiled. The other party's personality was not bad. Although this kind of person was arrogant, there was a level of arrogance. In other words, if a genius didn't have arrogance, then it was because he felt inferior. "Yi Chen, since you are here, why not come down and play?" Huang Hengfei's eyesight was very good. He immediately saw Yi Chen. He had already seen the video of this batch of rookies. "I'll do as you say." Yi Chen indeed wanted to play this unique training program. "Be careful, his spinning ball has a very high rotation speed. I have no way of surpassing that speed." Ju reminded Yi Chen as they brushed past each other. "Understood." Yi Chen nodded. "Old rules, you serve first." Huang Hengfei signaled to Yi Chen. Bang! The ball was thrown up and Yi Chen struck it with his rod. So fast. Many people on the spectator stand were surprised. When Yi Chen threw up the thunderball, his metal rod had already struck out. The two movements were completed at almost the same time, giving people a strong visual impact. Good timing. Huang Hengfei had played the thunderball countless times and had seen this kind of situation before. He played it down and whipped the thunderball at an even faster speed. Bang 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 bang, after a dozen rounds, Huang Hengfei began his spinning ball attack. Huang Hengfei's spinning ball had a rotation speed that ordinary people couldn't compare with. In the blink of an eye, it was unknown how many times it had rotated. If the rotation speed couldn't reach the spinning speed of the spinning ball, the ball would lose control. Of course, Yi Chen was already mentally prepared. The muscles on his right arm swelled and Yi Chen's metal rod struck the lower middle of the thunderball. Swoosh! Not only did the thunderball return, but it also produced a flickering arc trajectory, making people unable to see the trajectory of the ball. What? Looking at the distorted trajectory of the ball, everyone on the spectator stand was shocked. Chapter 1084. Huang Hengfei was even more shocked. There were two reasons for his surprise. First, the spinning ball he had just released had an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, it had spun at least 10,000 times. To neutralize this spinning ball, he had to exert an equal amount of rotational force. Second, not only had the other party neutralized the spinning ball, but he had also exerted an unbalanced rotational force on the thunderbolt ball. In other words, the rotational force that the other party had used had far exceeded his. As expected of a monster who reached the 4th level of the God of War pagoda. But that's not enough. Huang Hengfei laughed. His metal rod transformed into dozens of mirages. One of the mirages struck the thunderbolt ball, causing it to turn into a beam of light and shoot toward Yi Chen. Yi Chen instantly caught the trajectory of the thunderbolt ball and struck it with his rod. Swish! The rod missed. The thunderbolt ball seemed to disappear from Yi Chen's senses. The thunderbolt ball disappeared. Impossible. Ju and the rest couldn't believe it. The ball didn't disappear. It just sped up. Almost subconsciously, Yi Chen used the inertia of his metal rod to spin his body and appear in front of the thunderbolt ball. He struck it with his metal rod. He caught it. Huang Hengfei frowned. He suspected that the other party had practiced the thunderbolt ball before. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a newcomer to receive an instant speed ball. What was an instant speed ball? It was actually related to multiple forces. Huang Hengfei's multiple forces were at the late stage of fourth drive. In that ball just now, he had used 3 drive and first drive. 3 drive had been used on the Thunderbolt ball while the other first drive had been hidden. When the Thunderbolt ball was very close to Yi Chen, the hidden first drive had instantly erupted, causing the ball's speed to increase. As most people were already used to the ball's previous speed, the eruption of the ball's speed indirectly caused the phenomenon of the ball disappearing. Huang Hengfei swung his metal rod and struck the Thunderbolt ball. No, it's an illusion. Huang Hengfei was shocked. He did the exact same action as Yi Chen. He used the inertia of his metal rod to spin his body, appear in front of the Thunderbolt ball, and hit it back. That was close. He actually knows an instant speed ball, and he used it in that situation. Huang Hengfei secretly wiped his sweat. Watching the 2 players play on the court, everyone was dumbfounded. Not to mention Huang Hengfei, he was the captain of a beginner team, so it was natural for him to have this kind of power. Yi Chen was only a newbie, but he had somehow managed to tie with Huang Hengfei, and even saw through the instant speedball. Is he still a newbie? The long-haired young man who fought with Huang Hengfei before muttered. I also wonder if he's a newbie. Lu Wenxiu smiled bitterly. Spin. Instant speed ball. Spinning snake ball. Explosive ball. Speed ball. All kinds of balls were used on the 2 of them. Usually, Huang Hengfei would use them first, and then Yi Chen would instantly learn them and use them on Huang Hengfei. This caused Huang Hengfei's mind to become tense, and he treated Yi Chen as an opponent of the same level. He didn't dare to be careless. He was sure that if he was careless, he would lose without a doubt. Alright, I've never met a rookie as powerful as you. This is my self-created flickering meteor ball. I wonder if you can catch it. Huang Hengfei roared and waved the metal rod in his hand hundreds of times. These hundreds of times were completed in an instant, so they completely overlapped with each other. Crackle. In the void, hundreds of thunderballs appeared. Each of them was so fast, and their auras were astonishing. As long as my speed is fast enough, only one of them will be real. However, my speed is about the same as his, so it's impossible for me to reach such a speed. With my speed, I can probably hit 3 of them, but it won't be easy to hit any of them. The change in the force field caused by waving the metal rod will cause the real thunderball to deviate. In other words, it's very likely that none of the 3 balls will hit. Therefore, I can't hit these 3 balls directly. As long as I hit the point where the force field overlaps, the change in the field will cause the real thunderball to automatically run to the point where my metal rod strikes. As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Chen waved the metal rod and struck the middle point of the 3 thunderballs. Bang! The thunderball was hit. What kind of reaction speed is this? Huang Hengfei's mouth slightly opened. Forget it. His inner quality is not below mine at all. I can only use absolute power to beat him. Boom! Zhen Yuan exploded as Huang Hengfei used all of his power to hit the thunderball. Dang! The metal rod in Yi Chen's hand was thrown into the air. This thunderball's power was too overbearing. Not to mention counterattacking, Yi Chen could not even catch the ball. His metal rod flew out of his hand. I, Huang Hengfei, rarely admire people, but you are one of them. His cultivation base was at the peak of the 5th sky of life and death realm, which was 2 whole levels higher than his opponent. Moreover, one could not use martial skills while hitting the thunderball. Therefore, whoever had a higher cultivation base would have the absolute advantage. This was something that could not be made up. If Yi Chen's cultivation base were at the 4th sky of life and death realm, he might be able to contend with him. Here are 10,000 yuan stones. A smile appeared on Yi Chen's face. He realized that playing the thunderball could indeed improve one's inner quality, just like how battling could improve one's inner quality. However, the difference was that battling had a lot of auxiliary skills, such as protective Jin Yuan, body defense, and all kinds of martial skills. The more auxiliary skills one had, the slower one's inner quality would improve. However, when playing the thunderball, none of these skills could be used, as they were meaningless. Thus, one would feel the real pressure and be forced to improve one's inner quality. Pure inner quality. Huang Hengfei did not look at the yuan stones on the ground and said, "I am Huang Hengfei, the captain of the Flying Spirit team. When you reach the 5th floor of the God of War Tower, you can consider joining our team." The Flying Spirit team was one of the more powerful teams among the beginner teams. It was also one of the teams that the beginner members of the God Paradise wanted to join the most. "I will think about it." Yi Chen faintly nodded. Every other week, Yi Chen would play a few games of Thunderball. Sometimes, he would win, and sometimes he would lose. Yi Chen tried not to compete with those who had reached the 5th sky of life and death realm, as he did not have that many yuan stones to lose. For the rest of the time, Yi Chen used it all to cultivate his Zhen Yuan. Being greedy for speed was the most important thing to improve one's cultivation, especially in the life and death realm. Every level of life and death realm was equivalent to building a solid foundation. Only with a solid foundation could one continue to improve. If one's foundation was not solid enough, even a tall building would collapse. It was only a matter of time. Therefore, without 100% certainty, Yi Chen would not try to break through to the 4th sky of life and death realm. He did not want to risk his future. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Yi Chen felt that he had close to 100% chance of breaking through to the 4th sky of life and death realm. In this half a year, Jiyu Qingxue, Zhu Jian, Li Yifeng, Xiao Shiyu, Lu Wenxiu, and Yang Feihua had all reached the 2nd floor of the God of War Tower. Yang Ting had reached the 3rd floor, and Arju had made it to the 4th floor, just like Yi Chen. On the court, Yi Chen and Arju were having a showdown. Arju had not only improved his strength, but also his skills. Once his skills improved, it would not be easy for Yi Chen to defeat his opponent. Moreover, Arju was also at the 4th sky of life and death realm, one sky higher than Yi Chen. Therefore, in the past month, Yi Chen and Arju had 3 wins and 1 loss. This was the 5th time. Looks like this is my 2nd win in a row. Peng. The thunderball flickered in the air, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. A smile appeared on Arju's face. Not necessarily. A phantom appeared on Yi Chen's body. The phantom waved his rod, and the real body followed. Peng. The thunderball that had escaped was whipped by the real body and shot out. Instant speed ball. Arju launched a 2nd attack after the first one missed. But what surprised him was that the 2nd attack also missed. The thunderball hit the metal wall and bounced back. 1 layer of light power, 3 layers of dark power. I see. Arju thought for a while and suddenly understood. There were many kinds of instant speed balls. If one reached the 4th drive realm, then there were 3 kinds of instant speed balls, namely, 3 layers of obvious power and 1 layer of hidden power, 2 layers of obvious power and 2 layers of hidden power, and 1 layer of obvious power and 3 layers of hidden power. The 3rd kind had very high technical requirements. It was not very difficult to hide 1 layer of hidden power, but it was a little difficult to hide 2 layers of hidden power, and it was extremely difficult to hide 3 layers of hidden power. This led to the fact that once the speed of the ball exploded, there was no time to react. Finally, I have 100% confidence. On the 11th month since he came to the God Paradise, Yi Chen officially started to attack the 4th sky of life and death realm. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Inside the bamboo house, a large amount of yuan stones flew out. The pure energy inside was extracted under the control of an invisible power, forming a river. The river flowed through Yi Chen's head and poured into Yi Chen's body. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. The Zhen Yuan inside Yi Chen's body boiled. The Tao gate in his dantian suddenly expanded and contracted, rapidly transforming the external energy and increasing Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan. Once his Zhen Yuan increased, breaking through to the next realm was a must. 1 day passed. 3 days passed. 10 days passed. 20 days passed. Boom. A frightening aura soared into the sky. The green bamboo house was on the verge of collapse, seeming as if it would be torn into pieces at any moment. However, it was a building of the God Paradise after all, so it was indestructible. Another week passed. Creak. The door of the bamboo house opened, and Yi Chen walked out. The 4th sky of life and death realm. My Zhen Yuan is several times purer and more robust. But, it still cost me several tens of thousands of yuan stones, which is equivalent to several 100 million supreme-grade spirit stones. Unbelievable. In the past, Yi Chen had a solid cultivation base, but he didn't have a proper cultivation method. However, after breaking through to the third sky of life and death realm, his cultivation base had been used up. In the future, every time he tried to break through to the next sky of life and death realm, he would need a huge amount of external energy. For the fourth sky, he would need tens of thousands of yuan stones, and for the fifth sky, he would need hundreds of thousands of yuan stones. However, it was precisely because of this that the gap between each sky was so huge. Ordinary geniuses would find it hard to challenge those with higher realms. Chapter 1085. Breaking through to the fourth layer brought Yi Chen not only a sharp increase in his cultivation base, but his sword domain also advanced from the peak of the fourth layer to the fifth layer. Although the fifth layer and the peak of the fourth layer seemed to be only a step apart, the gap between them was immeasurable. This was because the sword domain contained the sword rule. With each layer, the sword rule would become more perfect. Legend had it that once the sword domain reached the peak of the ninth layer, one would possess a trace of Sword God's power, and Sword God grasped the sword rule. His Zhen Yuan had become several times purer, and his sword domain had advanced from the peak of the fourth layer to the fifth layer. His strength had increased tenfold, and the difference from before was like the difference between heaven and earth. I can challenge the War God Tower and the Survival Tower now. During this year, Yi Chen had used up the remaining 90 shunbi on comprehending the Wood Profound. Unfortunately, it was still a step away from reaching perfection. Apart from Wood Profound, he still needed to improve the Thunder and Shadow Profounds. Therefore, he was in dire need of shunbi. Regarding the Slow and Fast Power Upanishad and the Fast Power Upanishad, the Paradise of God didn't have such a power Upanishad tower. They weren't simple power Upanishads. War God Tower's fourth floor, Yi Chen's opponent was a horned demon king with a cultivation base of 6th layer life and death realm. There was an insurmountable gap between 6th and 7th layer life and death realm. 7th layer life and death realm could grant one the title of emperor. This title was not only in terms of title, but also in the emperor mark. The emperor mark was extremely mysterious and related to the selfless realm. After breaking through the selfless realm, one could condense their own emperor mark. Therefore, reaching the 7th sky of life and death realm was as hard as reaching the sky. No one knew how many warriors had been stuck at the 6th sky of life and death realm, unable to make any progress. This had led to the difference in strength among the 6th sky of life and death realm king warriors. The weak ones might not even have 1/10 of the power of the powerful ones. The horned demon king before him was not at the bottom of the 6th layer life and death realm, but it was only 2 or 3 times more powerful than them. Roar! The horned demon king's demonic power erupted as it fiercely charged at Yi Chen. Facing the horned demon king, Yi Chen first released his sword domain and then slashed out. Poochie! The unicorn demon king's body froze, and in the next moment, it was sliced into nothingness by the dense sword chi. Past the 4th floor. Reward, 100 shunbi. The reward for the 3rd floor was 60 shunbi, and the 4th floor was 100 shunbi. Paradise badge upgraded to primary badge. Immediately afterward, the Paradise badge on Yi Chen's chest began to change. First, it was energized and turned into a light, and then it was branded on the back of Yi Chen's hand, like the most realistic tattoo. The color was cyan. Buzz! Yi Chen activated the elementary badge on the back of his hand. Immediately, a screen of light appeared, showing that he had 100 shunbi, as well as a few lines of information. Team, none team identity, none hunting achievement, none mandatory mission, enter the hunting tower every 3 months. After dispelling the light screen, Yi Chen arrived at the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda. The opponent on the 5th level was the Yaksha King. The Yaksha race was one of the most powerful races in the universe. Their individual strength was powerful, and their average battle power was even higher than that of the demons. However, the Yaksha race's reproductive ability was poor, and they were ranked last among the major races. Of course, this was only in comparison to the other races. This Yaksha king's cultivation base was naturally at the sixth sky of life and death realm. His skin was stone grey, and he had a pair of fleshy wings on his back. His exaggerated muscles showed that he was a life form with explosive power. Swoosh! Holding a sharp spear, the Yaksha king stabbed out. Without a sound, Yi Chen released his sword domain, and the Yaksha king's movements slowed down as if he had fallen into a swamp. But in the next moment, the muscles on his body suddenly squirmed, and a grey halo spread out. This was the Yaksha king's domain. With the domain and the suppression of his cultivation base, the Yaksha king's movements returned to normal. Not only that, as if he was on stimulants, the speed of his spear once again increased. Ding! Yi Chen blocked the attack with his dragon spring sword. Worthy of the 5th level. The 4th level Demon King's domain was only at the late 3rd level, while the 5th level Yaksha King's domain had already reached the early 4th level. Combined with his 6th sky of life and death realm cultivation base, it just happened to cancel out Yi Chen's 5th level sword domain. Swish! 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 The Yaksha King's speed was extremely fast. The pair of fleshy wings on his back gave him a powerful explosive power. However, Yi Chen could tell that the Yaksha King was good at short-range explosiveness. Within a certain distance, no one could surpass his speed. However, no matter how he attacked, he was blocked out by Yi Chen. Almost there. Yi Chen, who had been circling the whole time, suddenly jumped up and charged toward the Yaksha King. Clang! The sword and the spear clashed. The Yaksha King's arm shook violently, and the spear flew out of his hand. The dragon spring sword paused slightly, and Yi Chen's right arm muscles swelled as he waved out the second sword attack. The sword light flickered, and half of the Yaksha King's body disappeared like a bubble. The 5 fingers of his left hand opened, and 5 fluctuating sword chi converged together. Yi Chen directly destroyed the remaining half of the Yaksha King's body. 5th level passed. Reward, 300 shunbi. After passing the 5th level, Yi Chen's number of shunbi increased to 400, which was not a small number. On the 6th level of the God of War Pagoda, the opponent became the evil king of the evil spirit race. The evil spirit race was a very strange race. In Elysium, the evil spirit race was suppressed by the Elysium, so they could not display their strangeness. The strangeness of the evil spirit race lay in their life structure and inconceivable evil arts. The evil spirit race was different from other races. They did not have the ability to reproduce, and every single one of them was born on an evil altar. It was said that there was a most primitive evil altar in the evil spirit world, and that was the origin of the evil spirit race. They were born with immortal bodies, and they were immune to most negative effects. Although their race was not as strong as the Yaksha race, even the demons were not willing to provoke this race. As for the evil arts of the evil spirit race, they were inconceivable. Resurrection, curses, death, life transfer, and possession were all kinds of terrifying evil arts. It could be said that the evil spirit race was the most difficult race to kill. Death Halo. As soon as he appeared, this evil king gave Yi Chen a death halo. Once enveloped by the death halo, one's essence, chi, and spirit would continuously disappear until one died. Looking at the grey halo that suddenly appeared on his body, Yi Chen frowned. If the evil spirit race of Elysium was also this terrifying, they would have won even more miserably. Immortal protection. The immortal sword intent exploded, and the death halo collapsed. Facing the immortal sword intent of the 7th order, Yi Chen was immune to all evil, and no negative effects could affect him. Autumn blade falling rain. Seeing that the death halo was ineffective, the evil king pulled out his evil blade and slashed at Yi Chen. So fast. Yi Chen waved his sword to block, but his whole body was sent flying. Shadow of death. Suddenly, Yi Chen's body froze. Countless shadow tentacles shot out from under his feet and wrapped around his body. These shadow tentacles were formless and intangible, but they had unimaginable power. Yi Chen could not break free even if he used his true yuan. The immortal protection sword intent could only protect his body, and it could not destroy all the shadow tentacles at once. Kai. The evil king swung his blade, and the blade light covered the whole world. A cold light flashed in Yi Chen's eyes, and he pushed the instant sword domain to the limit. Instantly, the speed of the blade light's attack slowed down. Taking this opportunity, Yi Chen used the 3 flowers borrowing Dao. 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue flower floated above Yi Chen's head. At the same time, Yi Chen's essence, energy, and spirit multiplied. Bang, bang, bang. The shadow tentacles were broken, and Yi Chen did not hesitate to use the instant glory. The blade light and the sword light shattered at the same time. However, Yi Chen's instant sword domain increased the binding power of the 3 flowers borrowing Dao. The evil king's movements were not as fast as before, and Yi Chen took the initiative to destroy the evil king's body with a sky absolute sword. However, Yi Chen did not expect that the evil king did not die. He had only destroyed a human-shaped wooden sculpture. It's the life transfer technique. Yi Chen was shocked. He had heard of the life transfer technique before. This kind of evil technique could transfer a portion of one's life energy to another object, allowing that object to have battle strength similar to the main body. Furthermore, there were no flaws. The disadvantage was that once the transferred life energy was destroyed, it could not be recovered. The main body would definitely lose a portion of life energy, and their lifespan would be reduced. This was a forbidden technique of the evil spirit race, and they would not use it easily. However, this was the god of war pagoda, and the other party was only a guardian. There were not that many taboos. Even when the effects of the 3 flowers borrowing Dao were about to disappear, Yi Chen still could not kill the evil king. The other party had too many clones, and they came one after another. He could not kill them all. If he wanted to pass this level, he had to exhaust the evil king's life energy so that the other party could not use the life transfer technique. Otherwise, he could use absolute strength to completely lock onto the evil king's main body and prevent it from escaping. However, Yi Chen was only slightly stronger than the evil king, so he could not do that. In the end, Yi Chen stopped at the 6th level of the God of War Pagoda. After coming out of the God of War Pagoda, Yi Chen went straight to the Survival Tower. Previously, Yi Chen already had the ability to pass the 4th level of the Survival Tower. However, he was still too weak at that time, and Yi Chen did not want to pass the 4th level so early. This was because to pass the 5th or 4th level of the God of War Pagoda, he had to enter the hunting tower once every 3 months. It was too dangerous. This time, Yi Chen did not hesitate. Soon, he passed the 3rd level of the Survival Tower. The reward was 100 shunbi. The 4th level was to enter a heavily guarded Yaksha territory and assassinate a Yaksha king before leaving. The difficulty was many times higher than the 3rd level. If one was not careful, they would be surrounded. Yi Chen spent some effort to sneak in. After successfully assassinating the target, Yi Chen directly killed his way out. With the powerful split sword domain, Yi Chen easily killed his way out and left. After passing the 4th level, Yi Chen received another 300 shunbi. Just like that, Yi Chen had 800 shunbi. It was enough for him to stay in the Olden Tower for more than 2 months. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.